Hi, I'm Chris Haroun, and this MBA degree program is not what you think it is. It's better. This program is more than 25 years of business experience, all rolled into one easy-to-access online program. I've sold over 1 million courses in every single country. I've worked at Goldman Sachs. I have an MBA from Columbia University, and I've worked in the venture capital, hedge fund, and consulting industries. I've also started many companies, and my courses have been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, CNN, and NBC. If you're ready to nail your next interview, get a better job, get a raise, start that business you've always dreamt of, improve the one you currently run, or better manage your personal finances, then this MBA degree program is for you. I can't begin to tell you how comprehensive this program is. It's got everything, including more than 300 hours of on-demand video. I would have to do one of those dramatic opening title crawls from a certain space movie just to show you. And check out all the amazing reviews from students who have already enrolled in this MBA degree program. This on-demand version of the program is only $499, and it's more up to date than many of these old-fashioned MBA programs, which cost you well over $100,000. Not to mention, they don't even teach you the practical concepts included in my program. Last but not least, there is a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. And because you can access this program from any device, meaning a desktop computer, or a laptop computer, or a tablet, or even your smartphone, it means you can comfortably fit it into your schedule. Even if you work full-time, it's no problem. So if you're ready to unlock the key to your potential, then I'll see you in class. Welcome to our 88th weekly webcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way the call works is this is an AMA, which means you can ask me anything. You can ask me business questions, personal questions, career questions, and the call ends in 3 hours by 11 a.m. Pacific time. I answer the calls in the order in which I receive them. If I accidentally miss your question, I should say, then please just type it again, as I want to humbly help as much as I possibly can to answer your questions. All right, so without further ado, let's begin, and thank you as always. All right, so the first question we've got here is from Rualina, who's saying, hi, Chris. Is there any additional links or risks to ETFs because of the COVID situation? For example, oil ETFs, S&P ETFs, can they go bankrupt? Also, how do you find ETFs that are possible to buy in Europe? Yeah. So thank you. So ETFs, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, stands for Exchange Traded Funds. And this basically means a way to invest in a company and a group of companies by paying very, very low fees. And so I'll give you an example. An example of this is the S&P 500, and the ticker is SPY. And as a result, people call it the spiders or SPY. And I'll show you what this means. So if we go over here to finance.yahoo.com, and never pay for anything, please, when it comes to financial information. You can get it all free on Yahoo Finance. Don't pay for Bloomberg. Okay, so what you can do is you type in the ticker here for the ETF. Okay, so SPY. And if you scroll down here, what you'll see is you'll see what's inside this as well. What are the holdings? And so the S&P 500 is a collection of 500 stocks that represents the U.S. markets. And so here's the top 10 positions in that S&P 500 index, the SPY. It's very tech heavy, Microsoft, Apple, etc. Now, if you want to do this for other countries, you can as well. So EWZ is for Brazil. And so the Brazil the Brazil index, EWZ, contains very natural resource-rich companies. Sorry, let me type it again here. Probably doing these things live so I can make mistakes, and I make a lot of them. So if we go to holdings here of the EWZ, you can see here that there's copper companies, there's petroleum companies, oil companies like Petroleum Brazil, which is Petrobras. You can even do the same thing for Canada by typing EWC. And there's other ETFs as well for Europe. And the best thing I recommend for you to do is to go to Vanguard's website. Okay, so Vanguard, it's a great ETF company. Here it is here. So it's investor.vanguard.com. And what you can do here is you can actually look at every single ETF that they have, and you can even read the prospectuses, meaning the small documents that tell you what's in them and what risks there are. And the great thing about investing in ETFs is that the fees are very, very low. So for example, if we look at the ETF for what we call the Qs, or traders call it Qs, which is QQQ, and this is basically the tech stocks within the NASDAQ. But if you look at this, you'll see that the expense fee is actually quite low. And so the annual expense fee is only 0.2% to own a ton of tech stocks that are inside the NASDAQ index in the United States. And you can compare and contrast that with mutual funds, where the actual fee on mutual funds can be about 5% per year, including the fees you pay that are not hidden and ones that are hidden as well. Plus, you pay higher taxes when you invest in mutual funds. Mutual funds are a scam. And you can do a search on my YouTube vlog for a very long vlog I did on why that's the case. The bottom line is that mutual funds, almost all of them, underperform ETFs, and the fees are way, way higher. Now, in terms of your follow-up question on oil ETFs, yes, there are a ton of risks when it comes to oil ETFs and individual oil stocks, given the material pullback we've seen in the markets recently, especially oil, where the future price of oil went to negative $40 at one point because there's so much excess capacity. They don't know where to store all this stuff. You can't find it. And it costs a couple $100,000 to keep these massive tankers just up and running on a daily basis in the Baltic Sea, for example. But if you wanted to invest in oil services companies, there's actually an ETF for that. And let me show you that. So the ETF would be the OIH, the Oil Services Index. And within here, you have a lot of oil drilling companies, including Schlumberger, as well as Transocean and Rig. Transocean ticker is Rig, which is the coolest ticker ever. Here it is right here. Yeah, right here. Yeah. So what you can do is you can diversify your risk by doing research on one of these ETFs. So you don't get exposed to just one oil-based company or one oil company that does exceptionally well based on the price of oil. So that's why I recommend. Now, there's also ETFs for European stocks as well. And all you have to do is just type up ETF space EU, and you'll see a bunch of European ones that you can look into. So this one here is called the iShares Euro Stock 50. And another reason why ETFs are great is because usually they don't sell what's in them, the people that run these things, every year, unless they have to rebalance and add new stocks to an index. And that's a great thing because mutual fund companies, for the most part, they buy and sell a lot all year long because the portfolio managers chase performance. And what happens is governments around the world, they actually encourage us all to be long-term investors because the taxes that we pay if we make profit on a stock or an investment, if we make profit in less than a year, meaning we have realized gains in less than a year, you pay a higher capital gains tax than if you held them for more than a year. That's the case in most countries. And so in this case, you can look here at the Euro Stock 50 ETF. And we can go here to holdings. I've never looked at this one before. And yeah, it's got a lot of great European companies. SAP, which is a wonderful German software company based in Waldorf, close to Frankfurt. You've got LVMH. You've got a lot of brands you recognize. Siemens, which is like the General Electric of Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So I would check these out and just know that, of course, there are always risks when it comes to investing in ETFs. But I like ETFs better than single stocks or individual stocks because it diversifies the risk because you're holding a number of different stocks within one portfolio. And the bottom line, last thing I'll say about this, the fees on ETFs are much, much lower than they are for mutual funds, which I humbly believe are a scam. All right, great question. All right, next up is Peter. Hey, Peter. And the question from Peter is, how do you get VIPs or HNIs, meaning, okay, very important people or high net worth individuals, to partner with you on a new online course you're making? The partner I'm trying to reach is you. Oh, thank you. God bless you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. So what I do actually is, I teach on a wonderful platform called Udemy. And in the ed tech market, Udemy is Google and everyone else is Bing. So what I want to do is I want to show you how you can learn from so many mistakes that I've made so you can also teach online on Udemy and you can actually work smarter and not harder. So what I've done is this. I put 5 pedals down here this morning. I messed it up a bit. Sorry. I'm always trying to push the goalpost out. But what you can do is search for me. I'm going to give you a couple of free courses, guys. Udemy, Chris Haroun. How do you pronounce that? And then you go here to my profile. And once you're on my profile, just look for, there's 2 courses. One is called, I hate when this asks me this, Apple. Okay, there we go. One of them is called 40 Tips on How to Make a Great Online Course. And the other course of mine is called Another 40 Tips on How to Make a Great Online Course. And these are available in many different languages as well. And they just changed the way they sort these here, but I promise you will find it here. Here we go. So here's the course, 40 Tips on How to Make a Great Online Course. And these are based on 40 mistakes I've made over the past year or so teaching online. I've made tons of mistakes, and I want you to work smarter, not harder. And it's a free course. So it's in Russian, it's in Arabic. It's also in English, of course. I've got it in a bunch of other languages as well. And there's another one called Another 40 Tips on how to, here it is here, how to make a great online course. And I've got it also in Mandarin, Korean, German, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Italian. Yeah. So I would check those out, and hopefully that's helpful to you. And in terms of support and helping you with that, because you can't ask questions in free Udemy courses anymore, what you can do is always come to this weekly webcast, and I'm more than happy to humbly help you as much as I possibly can when it comes to setting up your online course. Now, I think everybody has something to teach, and when one teaches, two learn. And you can make a great side hustle from home teaching online. Anybody can do it. There's this amazing woman named Teresa Greenway who teaches on Udemy how to bake bread, and she's done incredibly well. And by the way, I don't get comps by Udemy for saying good stuff. It's an algorithm anyway, but Teresa's done very, very well doing that. And a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a video gamer named Ninja, and for anybody that plays Fortnite, you know who he is. And he started out teaching on Udemy on how to use Twitch, which is Amazon's platform for video streaming for video games. So everybody has something to teach. I promise you. Check out those free courses of mine. And if you have questions on how to make your course better or how to make a course, then please ask me here on this weekly webcast, because I've humbly made every mistake there is to make. And I'll continue to make mistakes. I've humbly made every mistake there is to make teaching online. All right. Next question is from Peter. Peter is saying, hi, Chris. Hey, Peter. Do you think that the United States stock market is priced fairly at this moment? And why or why not? Are there any shadow statistics that you think trading algorithms have not taken into account yet? Yeah. So there's certainly a lot of volatility. It is hot as hell in here with all these lights. Sorry. There's certainly a lot of volatility, but I don't think that markets are ever fairly priced in stocks. Otherwise, there'd be no point to try to pick stocks. And when I pick stocks, and when I tell my students in my MBA degree program to pick stocks, we always look out 5 to 10 years. And we look at earnings or cash flow, which is the same thing longer term because they converge. We look at earnings or cash flow in 5 or 10 years. And then we value companies based on that. And so a lot of times people will say to me, Chris, you're crazy to own that certain stock like LinkedIn, which I owned years ago. You're crazy to own LinkedIn at 100 times earnings. And I would say, well, I'm not cray-cray, because it's only 4 times earnings based on my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years. And so, as Warren Buffett said, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. Now, I want to teach you a quick little trick, and I'm not telling you which stocks to buy or sell, because I don't want to give you a fish. I want to teach you how to fish humbly if I can. But I learned this trick from a guy I worked for, the guy that hired me at two great hedge funds, Citadel as well as Pequot, and his name is Carson Levitt. And what Carson taught me is this, and he's very sophisticated, but he has some very simplistic stuff that has helped me tremendously investing, and Warren Buffett loves to keep it simple as well. What you do is this. You pull up the quote of any company. Okay, so I pull up the quote here for Boeing, ticker is BA. And then what you do is you look at a stock over the long run. And you look at a recent point over the past couple of years or so where the stock was lower. And you got to ask yourself, are things as good or as good now as they were back then? If not, there's a chance the stock could revisit or retest those lows unless they've had explosive earnings growth, which we know right now in this environment is not the case. So with this example here, and I just pull up a random stock, right here, when it was $340 not too long ago, you could have told yourself, well, are things better today for Boeing than they were back here? And if the answer is no, then it could revisit those lows. And that's a backdoor way, a simplistic way of saying that earnings estimates might be a little bit too high at this point. It doesn't work perfectly, but it's a great sanity check to use, kind of like the Senate, which is a sober second look in most countries. So let's pick another stock here. So let me go to Twitter, I guess. I saw that one just come up there. And I'll do this for any stock you want me to as well. So what you can do is you can look at a chart of Twitter, and you could say back here in February of 2017, Twitter was at $17. Right now it's $29. Are things that much better today than they were then? Well, with Twitter, it might be actually only because a lot of people are resorting to Twitter for news on this awful virus. So let me pull another one. Let me pull up letter F for Ford. And by the way, if a ticker is just one letter, it's a very prestigious thing, kind of like license plates and the number 4. So Ford, which is ticker F, if we pull up a chart here on Ford, you can see here it is priced at a pretty low point. Yeah, so this one's not going to work as well. But if Ford right now it's at about $5. If it was $12 now, we would say, are things better now or worse than they were in 2017? Well, clearly much, much worse. And so I don't recommend looking at technicals or charts first. Look at fundamentals first, valuation second, and then a distant third, charts. But this is a quick and dirty way to look at it. And there are some companies, though, that are better off because of this terrible virus we're in right now. Right? So there's Campbell's Soup, CPB. Soup is good food. And people were hoarding cans of Campbell's Soup. And so it's done quite well relative to the past as well. So are things better for Campbell's Soup today than they were? Let me pick a more recent date. Back in 2012, I would say better. I would say better. A lot of people are stocking up on cans for obvious reasons. And also, Campbell's Soup is defensive. It's somewhat countercyclical, and usually it has a decent dividend yield. So hopefully that answers that question. But the bottom line is, when you do fundamental research, I want you to look out longer term. I want you to value the company based on your earnings estimates longer term. And I want you to build a financial model. And I can teach you this as well in my MBA degree program or my Udemy courses. And as always, if you have questions about individual stocks and how to value companies and how to do research, please let me know, and thank you. All right. Yeah. Yeah, and Peter, you also asked a question about getting okay, and you asked also about how to get teachers like me to partner with you. I kind of felt bad my answer wasn't good enough for you there. So here's what I'd say to you. Okay, there's the best way to do it. I have this free book that you can get. And I just reorganized this room as you can clearly tell. I feel like the absent-minded professor here. But there's this book I have that I wrote, which is free, and it's called How to Network. And it's over 200 pages. I'm going to show you how to get it. And it will teach you a lot about networking based on mistakes I've made and successes I've humbly had. I've raised and managed over $1 billion in my career. A lot of the money I've raised was by networking using the process I'm about to show you. So go to my website, harouneducation.com, and then scroll down. Doesn't this guy look like Brad Pitt? Like, people say George Clooney as well, or Bradley Pitt. Just kidding. Brad Pitt doesn't have my aerodynamic nose, okay? He's jealous. Because when I ski, And when I'm riding my bike, it's aerodynamic. In your face, Bradley Pitts. Yeah. But if you scroll down here on my homepage, past all my propaganda here, you could see here I've got this book. And you can actually get this book for free if you go to my website. It's free. And I promise you, Peter, it'll help you to network like crazy so you can find people to teach a course with, or if anybody else is watching that wants to access high net worth investors, I'm certainly not one of them, but you can use that networking book to reach out to people that might want to partner with you with your startup. And just remember that relationships are always more important than product knowledge. You want to bond before business when you network with people. Read my book for more details, and thank you. All right, next one is from another Peter. Wow, there's a bunch of Peters here today. That's French is Pierre, which is rock. Right? It's a biblical name too. I love it. Thank you. All right, Peter is saying, hello, Chris. For people who have done your Complete Financial Analyst course, it is not necessary to do your finance accounting modeling valuation course, right? Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it only because the Complete Financial Analyst training and investing course is much more comprehensive. I poured my heart into both courses, but the course that teaches you about finance and accounting, meaning the Introduction to Finance and Accounting course, that course is actually only 4 hours, whereas the Complete Financial Analyst course is more than 20 hours. And in that course, you actually join me in my fictitious company called Morgan Haroun Sachs. And if there's any lawyers from Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs watching right now, it's a fictitious company. Please don't worry. Don't worry. All right. So, but you can take that if you want. You can take the Complete Financial Analyst training course because it does include the finance and accounting stuff. Yeah. Don't take the other one. Yeah. Thank you though. And I always have a 30-day money back guarantee anyway. If you take a course of mine, you're like, oh, I already learned this stuff. You can always get a refund. The same thing with my MBA degree program, actually. My MBA degree program, which is out now and you can enroll today, you can actually go to my website right here. And if I could use these pedals right, there we go. You can go to my website and you can sign up for the course right here. And then there's a 30-day, no questions asked, 100% money back guarantee. I put my reputation online for you. All right, next up is what central banks do have a massive impact on markets? Okay, so the question is, which central banks have a big impact on the markets? What would you recommend to study in order to get an idea about what central banks do beyond controlling interest rates? For example, you wrote repo rates, which means that repurchase rates, yeah. So I would say that the most powerful central bank in the world, and I'm just telling it like it is, don't get upset with this answer. I'm truly global, but it's United States government's Federal Reserve. Okay, and the Federal Reserve, and the reason is because the United States dollar has, for many, many years, it is what it is, since World War II, been seen as a flight to quality. And when there's a lot of issues around the world, in many cases, the U.S. dollar holds steady. And so I would say that the Federal Reserve in the United States, it's kind of like the manager for the store of money. And the way, and I'll talk about the ECB in a second, but the way that the Federal Reserve increases or decreases interest rates is the same way that other central banks do around the world. So what they do is this. If they want interest rates to go down, then what they do is they increase the supply of money. And before I go there, let me just talk about a simplistic example. Okay. So when the Nintendo Switch came out, you couldn't find them. There's limited supply. And the same thing recently with the Switch recently, actually, because of the COVID virus. There's a limited supply. And because there's a limited supply of Switches, for example, the price is much higher. It's obvious, right? Because there's limited supply. Now, when Nintendo decided to make a lot more Switches and make them readily available, and it flooded the market with Switches, the supply increased and the price went down. That's exactly how money works when it comes to governments. So when a government wants interest rates to go down, what they do is they actually increase the amount of money that's out there. How do they do this? Well, they do it by buying bonds back from you and other investors, and from banks and from other governments that might have held their bonds. And when they buy these bonds back, what happens is this. Let's say you own a United States bond. Let me get an example here. All right. I'm going to give you an example. Actually, I'm going to give you a Russian example today, okay? This will be fun. I'm going to mix it up because I want to be global. All right, so this here is a bond that the Russian government issued in 1917, or 1916, 1 year before the revolution. It was during World War I, and obviously they issued this bond because they wanted to spend money to, fight in World War I. And so what happened was this. The Russian government, they sold this to people all over the world and big companies all over the world. And let's just say you bought this Russian bond, okay? You bought it for whatever many rubles. You bought it. I give this to you, okay? In return, I actually take money from you, right? Because you bought it. And all of a sudden there are fewer rubles out there in the marketplace. And because there's fewer rubles in the marketplace that are taken out of circulation, the value of rubles goes up, meaning the interest rate in Russia, hypothetically speaking, goes up. That's how it works. And this here is what's called a coupon bond, which means that, and this is very old, obviously, but you could clip off these little coupons, take them to the bank, and cash them in. And so some bonds are actually sold with coupons. Ones that don't have coupons are called zero coupons because there's none of these. And if there's none of those, then they're sold at a discount, meaning you buy it for $9 and eventually, you can sell it back to the government, whatever, for $10. And so what's happening all over the world right now, and what has happened, is a lot of countries, in order to increase the amount of money out there so that interest rates go down, what they've done is they've actually bought back these bonds that you own in whatever country you might be in. And you're the consumer that owns this. I'm the government. So I basically buy this back from you by giving you money. Okay. Now, what just happened there was the amount of money out there went up. And just like with the Nintendo Switches, when the supply out there goes up, the price goes down. Okay. And so that's basically what's happened recently. And that's what the ECB has done this morning, actually. Okay. Now, we talked about the Federal Reserve in the United States, and they, of course, control interest rates in America. Let's now pivot and talk about what happened in Europe. So the second most powerful, it's a tie between them and the Chinese, actually. Central bank is the European Central Bank. And so the ECB, or European Central Bank, also sets monetary policy in Europe. And whenever you hear somebody say monetary policy, all it means is, well, the policy of money. Basically issuing bonds and making interest rates go up and down. That's it. Fiscal policy is raising money other ways, like raising taxes and other stuff. So in Europe, it's called the European Central Bank. And in Japan, it's called the Minister of Finance. And in most other countries, it's called the Bank of whatever country you're talking about. So in Canada, it's called the Bank of Canada. Yeah. So that's a high-level overview of monetary policy, meaning how countries change interest rates. And it's not just countries that issue bonds. Companies do as well. And I'll show you. So the Walt Disney Corporation, in 1982, they wanted to build something called Euro Disney. And so what they did was they could have issued stock, but they chose to issue bonds for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because they get favorable terms. Sometimes it's because they don't want to dilute shareholders who might get upset if they create too many shares and sell more shares. But this is a bond that the Walt Disney Corporation issued in the early 80s to build Euro Disney. And so you bought this bond, for example, from the Walt Disney Corporation. And then what would happen is every 6 months or so, you'd be able to clip off a coupon and cash that in. So it's not just countries that issue bonds, and bonds is just debt. That's it. And everything comes down to debt or equity. Debt is a loan like a bond. Equity is like a stock, or you own part of a company, that sort of thing. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. If you have additional questions, as always, please let me know. Thank you. All right. And I cleaned this place up. And I got rid of a lot of furniture and stuff, and I put these little shelves everywhere, these little black shelves, and they're actually right behind my chair as well, so I can find stuff better. Clearly, I'm not doing a good job. Yeah. All right. Oh, and one more thing. If you want to learn more about how banks work, I'm going to show you the best publication on the planet to read, which is life-changing. I love this. And I'm going to show you how to get it for free. And this is why I'm not sponsored by newspapers or anybody, actually. I don't want to be anyone else's bitch. Okay. So what you do is you go here to ft.com. And here on ft.com, I don't want, and by the way, FT is the Financial Times. It's kind of like the Wall Street Journal for Europe. It's a pink newspaper. I used to get it shipped to my door every day during the week when I lived in Manhattan. And I love it because it's more global than the Wall Street Journal. And it's kind of like the BBC without the bias. So what I want you to do is go to this website. And I don't want you to read anything that tells you what stocks to buy or sell, because when money managers are interviewed or CEOs are interviewed, they're great salespeople. Okay, I want you to always do your own research. But when you're here, what I want you to do is I just want you to read articles that have to do with fixed income, meaning bonds, commodities, or even just how the world works in general. Okay. So let me go here and find a good one to read. Okay. So right here, this here, for example, Grim Powell sets the Fed up for the long haul. Okay. So the Fed is the Federal Reserve. And here's the central bank they mentioned. Okay. So watch what happens if I click on this. They're trying to take money for it. I don't want you to pay. I want my students to get access to everything for very little or nothing. Okay. And so what you do instead is you copy this. Okay. And then you paste it. And here in Google, you see, or use Bing if you work at Microsoft. Here you see you can read the article. Why does that work? It works because if the FT didn't let that work, then Google wouldn't index all their stuff and you wouldn't be able to search and find FT stuff on the internet. So anyway, that's what I recommend reading is the FT. And now you know why I'm not sponsored by anybody. I never want to be. Yeah. Okay, next question is, US EXIM, to my knowledge, is one of the largest underwriters for Boeing and new airplanes to airlines. Do you think they will accept debt conversion into stock from airlines or force the defaults? Yeah. I don't know, but I will tell you how this all works. So in 1979, the United States government set up 300 bankruptcy courts across the country. And they did this to protect companies that were having financial problems. And so the way it works is this. And in the bankruptcy code, there's a number of different chapters. That's why you hear Chapter 11. So what happens is this. If you're having financial problems, what you can do, in the United States at least, is you can declare Chapter 11 status. And what that means is you basically have 4 months. You have a force field around you for 4 months, and nobody can touch you. And during those 4 months, what you try to do is you try to actually renegotiate your debt, because a lot of people that lent you money, they want something instead of nothing. Maybe they'll take 90 cents on the dollar and give up that 10 cents just to get something. And the amazing thing about the bankruptcy courts in the United States is more than 70% of all companies that declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy, as long as there's no fraud, more than 70% emerge victorious, and they're better off in the long run. So I think what's going to happen with a lot of the airlines is if they have to go into bankruptcy, then a lot of the debt holders will help to refinance their debts. And if not, then I think what happens is the U.S. government steps in because they can't just let the airline industry go belly up. They can't. Yeah. In fact, in some countries, airlines are owned by the country itself. You know, in Canada, when I was a kid, a lot younger, Air Canada was a crown corporation. We're part of the Commonwealth in Canada, so it was a crown corporation. But that's how vital that industry is in general to governments. So I do think a handful might go belly up, but I think most of them will get a bailout from from governments. Yeah. All right, Subham. Hey, Subham, thank you so much for telling me last week that the audio was out of sync. It's actually fixed now. It was a YouTube issue that's since been fixed, but thank you for that. I appreciate feedback. I love feedback from all my students because if they don't tell me my issues with my content, then we won't provide the best possible service to you. And a company is only as good as its customer service. So Shubham is saying, hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. Likewise. Which are the best books to read in order to understand? Okay. So the question is, what books do I recommend? Yeah. So my favorite book is actually, let me see if I have it here. This is one of my favorite books. This isn't my absolute favorite one. This is called Only the Paranoid Survive, which is a wonderful book that the late, great Andy Grove published. And basically, he talks about how every company has a strategic inflection point that they have to live through, or as Scott Weiss from Andreessen Horowitz and Ben Horowitz called a whiffio moment, which means where beep, it's over. Now, I want to show you this because other books I recommend are, you can do a search in my vlog, you'll see them, anything Dale Carnegie has ever written. But this is interesting to talk about because in 1994, what happened was Intel had a material issue. And Andy Grove talks about it in this book, which he published in 96. And so what happened was in 1994, Intel had an issue with their Pentium product. And this is the exact model that they recalled. I actually bought this on eBay, and I'm using this for my MBA degree students when I teach about how to handle disaster recovery and PR stuff. And so what happened was in 1994, people found out, and Intel found out actually, that this processor, which is the brain of the computer, this processor will not give you the correct answer to calculations that are very, very big with lots of decimals. Most people it didn't matter, but for some it would. And so what Andy Grove did was absolutely brilliant. He went on CNBC, Bloomberg News, Report on Business in Canada, and all these other great stations, and he took ownership for this mistake. And it was brilliant because transparency builds trust, like a bond with your customers. And at that point in time, not many people had heard, or non-techies had heard of Intel. And the first introduction they got to Intel was free PR of this really honest guy, Andy Grove, on television, taking ownership for a mistake. And he said, there's a recall. We'll give everybody back chips if they want. Just let us know. It's free, of course. And the benefit was this. You've got a guy who's talking about a product that nobody's ever heard of, or a lot of people haven't heard of. And it resides inside a computer. You can't see it. And the first impression everybody had was, oh, wow. Okay, wow, this is ethical. Oh, that's the brain that controls my computer. Oh, that's what Intel is. And Intel has become an incredible marketing company as well for its products. You remember the Intel Inside jingle. And basically, every time you see that on a commercial by a computer company, be it Dell, HP, whatever, Intel pays 40% of that advertising budget. And the brilliance is that Intel figured out a way to brand and create customer awareness on a chip you never see. Most people never open their computers. So it was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. So that's one of my favorite books, right here. Only the Paranoid Survive by the late great co-founder of Intel, Andy Grove. Yeah. And for more books of mine, you can always just go search my vlog. I've done a ton of vlogs on books. Yeah. Kunal, hope you're doing well. And Kunal wrote, "What book are you currently reading or listening to?" Yeah. So yeah, I use Audible. So I really haven't had time to do much reading, given the fact that I just launched this big degree program. But the most recent one I listened to was the most recent book from Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah, and Gary V is great with social media, and I'm learning a lot from him. Yeah. All right. And then Shoam is saying, you mentioned Steve Jobs many times in your courses and over here as well. I read more of his biography, the Isaacson one, right? It's a great book, Walter Isaacson. Yeah. And you wrote, he undoubtedly was a visionary, but also very controlling. What's your take on this? Yeah. So he wasn't the easiest person to work for. And I feel really bad saying this, just because I don't want to badmouth anybody. But it was tough. It was tough. Like what he would do, rightly so actually. What he would do is with the iPhone, he would have a couple different divisions work on the new iPhone, and he wouldn't let them talk to each other. And he would also call the secret name for this product something different in different departments. And if it ever leaked to the media the name of this product, then he would know who to go to not have the nicest conversation with them. That's what I would say. And I had other friends that worked there that said, I feel bad saying this, but I'm so transparent, just like Andy Grove, transparency builds trust, like I just talked about. But I had friends that worked there, and they would say, Chris, I learned never to get in an elevator with Steve Jobs, because by the time the elevator ride is over, quite often he would say, what do you do in this firm? You know, what value do you add? And then he would say, I want your letter of resignation on my desk first thing Monday morning. And I also knew one of the photographers there, and I feel awful saying this, but again, there's no filter, and he's done wonderful things, and I'm a big fan of his products. But there was a time, there's a photographer who was there that I know, and there was an assistant that was at Apple, and there was a big corporate lunch there. And after lunch was over, a couple hours afterwards, there was a bunch of sushi sitting around. And so she started packing it up just to take home. Otherwise, it's going to be garbage. And he fired her on the spot for that, right? So I feel bad because he was a brilliant visionary, and I respect his business sense. But it was tough to work for him. Yeah. But one thing I'll also say is that he didn't care what people thought of him. And that's actually a good thing in business. I'm not saying be rude or disingenuous at all, please. But if you don't care what people think of you in general, then you'll end up being much more successful. I'm not saying be unethical at all. I don't want you to get the wrong impression on what I'm talking about here. But a lot of very successful entrepreneurs, they don't care what people think of them. And because of that, they don't mind failing a lot because other people's opinions of them don't really matter. And I think that's a very admirable trait if done the right way. And the best way to increase your confidence in life is to tell yourself, I just don't care what people think of me. You know, I'm going to create this company. I'm going to launch this company. You're going to think I'm crazy. I don't care because you think I'm crazy now. I'll get some success. Then you'll call me a crazy genius. And then in true Apple format, once you achieve a heck of a lot of success, then you're not crazy genius. You're just genius. And you can just do a search on Apple commercials that think different ones. And it's kind of a nice summary of what I said. Yeah. But the best entrepreneurs, they just don't care. They just don't care what people think of them. And I want you all to be the same way as well, humbly, if we all can. Don't be rude or disingenuous, obviously. But just say, I don't give a damn what people think of me. I'm going to march to the beat of my own drum. I'm going to fail a lot. I don't care. Because every failure that I have, I get this much closer to success. And I'll get there. And you'll get there. And we'll get there together. Yeah. And I'm saying, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate everything you do and give us wisdom every week. You're the best. No, thank you. My students inspire me so much. Thank you. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a quick check, see if everything is working well. And I'll pull you under the covers here. So I'm using, so we got good connection here. And what's happened actually is Netflix was one of the first to do this. European countries asked Netflix to throttle down the bandwidth because everyone was watching 4K stuff at a very tough time in history. Hospitals should get priority for data. But what I did here is I put this here, you see, to normal latency instead of low latency. And that uses a lot less bandwidth as well. Yeah. So anyway, just checking the things are working. Give me one more second. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, see if anybody is complaining. No complaining. Okay, good. That's a good thing, right? Okay, great. Let me move on now. Thanks for your patience there. All right. Next question is from Dario. Dario and Dario, I know I mentioned this before. I went to business school with a guy named Dario. He went to IMD, I think, before. And he used to always say, "It's me, Dario." I loved it. Yeah. Good. That's a reference, of course, to Mario 64. Yeah. So Dario's writing, "Hi, Chris. Hope all is well. Likewise, thank you. I humbly think that you are one of the few people I know with all three qualities: competence, kindness, and being family-oriented. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I used to think that kindness was a sign of weakness, and I was always the first person to help people. And like I even remember when I worked at several companies, it was very uncomfortable, my annual review. That they always said, Chris, you've done great. You're good for the culture, and you've passed quota, all that stuff, whatever. And then it was very uncomfortable for them because they would say, "Can you maybe spend a little bit less time mentoring people in different departments?" And my answer was always very politely, it's just who I am. Yeah. But I used to think that kind of, and I thought that sometimes I could have made more money or done better, whatever, by, just focusing on myself and whatever. But I learned actually that if you give, you will receive. It's prophetic and been true since the beginning of time. That's not why I do it. I don't want anything in return. I do it because I love helping people. But it is interesting. And there's a wonderful book called Give and Take. And I'll summarize it in one sentence here. The poorest people in the world, the bottom 1%, the Mother Teresa's of the world, and I love her so much, and I wish somebody makes a movie on her life. God bless her. The poorest 1% of people in the world are givers. The middle 98% of people in the world are takers. Most people in business are they're avaricious. They take. The top 1% of people in the world by net worth are givers. And the reason is because they are so positive, their philosophy on life, and that's why very successful people are positive. And also they just want to help. And what happens is if you help people, call it karma, call it karma synchronicity, call it whatever you want. In the long run, it'll come back to help you. Yeah. And so actually, I've helped out a lot of younger people. And, in return, I've never asked for this. Years later, they've said, "Chris, you really shaped my life or helped me humbly. I want to introduce you to this big investor," or whatever it is. It always helps. It always helps. And when you mentor other people, you're in essence mentoring yourself. So if you want to feel inspired, inspire others first. And I got to end this with a quote from the Limo Foundation, which is a great charity I'm humbled to be on the board of in East Palo Alto, where the high school graduation rate is 40%. It's an education-based charity. But David, who founded the Limo Foundation, he said a quote that changed my life. He said, "Don't expect to accomplish your goals in life unless you help others accomplish theirs first." Thank you, Dario. Appreciate it. The question is, which international broker do you use to trade ETF stocks and options on global markets? Yeah. So they're all the same. Schwab is great. It's available in many countries, but not all countries. You can use Robinhood as well, which is amazing. It's a company where you don't pay fees. It's an awesome company. But I think they're all the same. But and if you don't know which brokerage firm to use, and when I say you, I'm talking to everybody on the call. Then what you can do is just call your bank and ask them, because quite often banks, if they're allowed to in certain countries, quite often banks have investment arms as well. In the United States, for years, it was illegal to have banks that also have investment arms. And so what would happen is to get around that, and we know that the word bank is spelled B-A-N-K, but for a while they would spell banks B-A-N-C. I'm not joking, right? It's what they did with Nations Bank. And I worked on the merger of Nations Bank and Bank of America back in 97, 98. And that's what they were called back then. Yeah. That's when Hugh McCall was dominating the banking industry in the Carolinas. All right. Next up is, speaking of options, if you win or lose the bet, who is the counterparts? I mean, if I make a put and the stock goes down under the strike price, who will lose? Okay, you'll make money, someone will lose. Usually it's the trading floor that set it up. So when I have my own hedge fund, every now and then when I want to set up a straddle, which means a call and a put to protect a position of mine. So if it goes down a lot, I don't lose money. But if it goes up a lot, I don't make money. And I would do this around earnings sometimes. But when Goldman Sachs would structure it for me, they would always make money, right? It's so complicated, options at times. And we try to price them and understand them using the binomial pricing theory and Black-Scholes, and it's a waste of time. It's just too much math. But there are big institutional firms that have prime brokerage divisions like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, UBS, Deutsche Bank, etc. And they set up those trades for people to buy. That's why they call them the sell side. They sell to you. And so they profit from the premium embedded in the option that they provide you with. Yeah. And then Juan David in the house. How are you, Juan David? Juan David wrote, hi, Chris. How are you today? A great background today. Thank you. Yeah, I changed it around a little bit today. A little bit. And so Juan David is based in Chicago. And I hope you like my Michael Jordan quote here. It's a new one. And of course, I've got the usual one over there, which is Michael Jordan saying, I failed over and over and over again. And that's why I succeed. Yeah. And Juan David he's 17. He's done 2 TEDx talks already. He's written a best-selling book, which was reviewed by the Chicago Tribune. And I'm humbled to say I wrote something nice in the back of the book too, because he inspires me so much. It's called Generation Optimism. Buy it, everybody. Read it. It's great. It's great. And Juan David is so inspirational. And he mentioned this, and he opened up in his book as well, that he came from Venezuela, he and his mother, and just had a very, very tough upbringing. They moved to Chicago, and he's been very successful at an incredibly young age. Like, who writes a book at 17 or does 2 TEDx talks? It's amazing. I'm impressed. But he's been very successful because of his positive attitude. All right. And Daniel is saying, hi, Chris. Hope all is well. Likewise. Why are venture capital firms and private equity firms talked about as 2 different things? Isn't venture capital a type of private equity? Venture capital is just the type of private equity that backs early stage ventures, right? Yeah. So they are different. So venture capital firms, what they do is they invest in early stage companies that are brand new, pretty much, or relatively new, that are trying to grow. And the use of proceeds, of course, from raising money from VC firms is to help them grow quickly. Now, private equity firms are a bit different. Private equity firms, they tend to invest in companies that are undervalued. And a great book for you to read, if you're interested in this, is called Barbarians at the Gate, which was written back in the 80s. And it's a story on how Henry Kravis, who's one of the best private equity firms in history, and I met him actually, he went to my business school, he came back to guest lecture, and he's awesome. But Henry, in that book, Barbarians at the Gate, it talks about Henry Kravis's help, and he works at a private equity firm, help in taking Nabisco, which is the National Biscuit Company, private. And so a private equity firm, usually what they do is they buy a company that's undervalued, then they fix it, maybe by letting go of certain people and putting in different managers, et cetera. And then what they do is once it's fixed, then they sell it back to the market. Venture capital firms usually don't invest in companies that are broken. They invest in brand new companies. And venture capital firms don't give a damn about valuation today. They care about valuation in the future. Private equity firms care about valuation today because stuff they buy today is usually quite cheap on a cash flow basis. And what will happen sometimes is they'll buy publicly traded companies and they'll kind of force them to break up into different pieces to unlock shareholder value. And a great example of this, and probably the most famous example recently, is eBay and PayPal. It used to be the same company. And then what happened was an activist investor named Carl Icahn, and he has a private equity firm. The activist investor, Carl Icahn, forced eBay to split up into 2 different companies. Core eBay Marketplace, which is slow growth, but value investors like it. And PayPal, which has torrid growth, which growth investors love. And the value of these 2 companies individually was much greater than it was when they were the same entity. Why? Because Carl Icahn, who works at a private equity firm, Carl Icahn figured out that investors were confused. Investors didn't want to own eBay before the breakup, because the value investors maybe like that part of it that's growing slowly, marketplaces. But the growth investors like the other side of it, which is, it's PayPal, which is growing quickly. And so it's difficult to get an investor that's both value and growth to buy that company. It's tough. It's tough. And what happens sometimes is, a lot of times companies that are very, very big and very successful, they get so big they can't really grow anymore. And the investors get upset. And the investors are growth investors. And so the investors don't want to hold it anymore because it's not growing fast enough. But it's not cheap enough yet for value investors to buy. And so growth investors will sell. And that transition from growth to value usually takes a decade. And it's called, I refer to it as, and I made this up, as investment purgatory. You never want to invest in a company that's in between the growth and value stage. And it does take about 10 years for that to happen. Sometimes what happens is private equity investors like Carl Icahn will see value because the stock he thinks is undervalued, but he knows value investors don't want to buy it and growth investors don't want to buy it. And so by him taking a big stake and fixing that company, he truncates the entire investment purgatory period from 10 years to way less than 10 years. And he's invested in a lot of companies as well that have declared bankruptcy. He's bought them on the cheap. Like, he owned Marvel, actually. People don't realize that Marvel filed for bankruptcy. And for those of you in my MBA degree program, we did a case study on this. And then, of course, Marvel emerged victorious from bankruptcy and was bought by Walt Disney, ticker DIS. And Carl Icahn made over $1 billion in that. Carl Icahn is a private equity investor. Now, the fee structure for private equity and venture capital is quite similar. It's usually what's called 2 and 20, and hedge funds kind of work the same. And what that means is this. It means if you invest $100 in a hedge fund or a private equity firm or a venture capital firm, if you invest $100, then every year you have to actually, you pay a 2% fee or $2 fee, right? Which keeps the lights on and pays for salaries and stuff. Then when you make a lot of money on it and you want to sell your position in that firm, you have to give up 20%. So instead of making, say you made $100, you only get 80, right? So they keep 20%. That's 2 and 20. That's the incentive structure. Yeah. Now with venture capital firms and hedge funds, if you sign a contract to invest, say $100, you don't give them $100 right now. Not yet. Because they have to go find investments. And when they find investments that they want to invest in, then they'll call you and give you a capital call and say, hey, remember that $100? Well, we just found 10% of our portfolio. We want to put it in this investment here. Can you please wire over 10 of your $100? That's how it works. Yeah. But all three of them, venture capital firms, hedge funds, and private equity firms, for the most part, use the 2 and 20 structure. And if you're curious about private equity, you can watch a great movie with Danny DeVito called OPM, or Other People's Money, opium, not the drug, Other People's Money. It's great. It's great, yeah. Yeah. All right, next up is Ramon. Ramon is saying, good morning, Chris. Likewise, good morning, everyone. 3rd week in a row now. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. This is a really great complimentary learning platform to your MBA course on Udemy. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge. My pleasure. And thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. And by the way, if you ever want, you guys are going to love this. Okay. Before you have a meeting with anybody, what I want you to do is go to their Twitter profile to see who they follow, because you can learn a lot about them. You might learn that they love baseball. And by the way, I got to nerd out and show you guys this. This here is an autograph that I got from Joe Carter when he played for the Cleveland Indians before he joined the Blue Jays, right? But so if I found somebody that is a Cleveland Indians fan, they follow the Indians, and I was going to meet with them, and I looked at their Twitter profile and saw they follow the Cleveland Indians, I would talk about Roberto Alomar or Joe Carter, 2 great players that play for Cleveland and Toronto. But when you go to somebody's Twitter profile, you learn a lot about them. and I want to show you Bill Gates' Twitter profile. This will be fun. But before any meeting from now on, go to the Twitter profile just to learn more about them so that you can bond with them before talking business in your meeting. All right, let's go to Twitter. All right, and then let's go to Bill Gates, William Gates. Here he is. And let's see who Bill Gates follows. So he only follows 217. That's up from 198 3 years ago. And if you look here to see who Bill Gates follows, you can look at it, see who's influenced him. And he follows Roger Federer. It's awesome. So obviously he likes tennis. He actually does play tennis a lot. Bill Gates does. Yeah. Trevor Noah, he's awesome. Yeah. And if you look through it, and I've looked through this before a lot, he follows a lot of charitable organizations because, he and Melinda are doing beautiful things in the Gates Foundation. Now, the only non-Microsoft company, the only non-Microsoft or non-Microsoft related company he follows is Udemy. Okay, and Udemy is Google and everyone else is Bing. Yeah, the only company. So you can look all the way through this and you'll see it down here. Let's go all the way down. All 217. U is at the bottom, right? It's in here. Something to do a search on Udemy, maybe. Yeah, it's in here. It's in here. It should be alphabetical, I think. But anyway, you can look through here and find Udemy. U. Here we go. Here it is here. Yeah, good. Yeah. So he's following Udemy. And so, yeah. So before you do your next informational meeting with somebody, or before you do a meeting with a customer or potential customer, because we know that we need to bond in business and relationships are more important than product knowledge, I want you to go to their Twitter profile to see who they follow so you can spark up a conversation with them when you meet with them. And sports is great boardroom talk as well. And maybe it's not sports, maybe it's music or the Oscars or whatever it is that person follows on their Twitter profile. But you never want to jump right into business. It's a big rookie mistake when you meet with somebody. You want to just bond first. And I love baseball because I can pick up I'm a baseball nerd. I can pick up a conversation with anybody on baseball based on where they live. And so when I meet people from Baltimore, I'll always bring up Cal Ripken, the Iron Horse. And it's not just baseball, but it's other global sports as well, like the real football, not this one. You know what I mean? Yeah. So sports is great boardroom talk. All right. Give 1 second, please. Inda is saying, thank you, Chris. This is good. Thank you. I appreciate that. The Will of D. Dude, it's been a couple months, man. I hope you're doing well. The Will of D is from Morocco, right? Morocco. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember as a kid in geography class learning about the countries at the top of Africa. And I used an acronym, MALE, Male, Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, with a little bit of Tunisia up there too. Yeah. And you wrote, I missed you so much, man. Likewise, dude. It's great to have you. Great to have you. And last time we spoke a couple months ago, I think you were creating some sort of seminar to teach people about something. And I hope, well, first of all, I hope you and your family are well. And I hope that you're figuring out how to do this online instead of in person. Yeah. And you wrote, "How's it going?" Things are okay. Things are okay. It's tragic what's happening in the world today. I'm praying a lot. No, I'm focused 24/7 on the student and my family too. Yeah. And then you wrote here at 6:44 p.m. here, almost iftar. Gonna grab my breakfast here and watch you. Thank you. No, it's great. Thank you. All right. And then you wrote, I just gave 2 lectures for free. Oh, good. You are doing it. Awesome. For free online. Is that good? Yeah, absolutely. I really think at this point in human history that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And everyone's got to do their part. Maybe it's just staying home is how some people help. For me, humbly, what I did was I gave away 1 million courses. 1 million courses over the course of a couple days in March. And I did it because I want to help. And I want people to just stay home and just learn from home and keep occupied and all that stuff. And I had about 70 or 80,000 of these courses, free courses, were downloaded by my students in Egypt. And I'm happy that happened because in Egypt, as we all know, they have just over 50 million people, but they all live along the Nile, just given the fact there's a lot of desert there, of course. And I was worried that people step outside. You know what I'm getting at. So anyway, and what's happened in my business since then is my ratings have gone down because when you give away free courses, that's what happens, but I don't give a damn. And also I had to bring on a couple more people to answer questions for all these free students. We're all in this together. Yeah, but good for you. Good for you for doing that online. And then you wrote, how far shall I give things for free? And when I give free lectures or workshops, what should I consider? One guy told me, never give more than 20% of what you know. Yeah. That's actually a great point. So in this new digital reality, with hyper competition on different platforms, the freemium business model works. And so when it comes to apps on Android or iOS, almost all apps are free. And then there's you can buy virtual gems if you play Clash of Clans, which I still do. I'm a man child, I get it. But I play with my kids, so it's okay, right? I play more than my kids. Is that bad? It's fine. But the freemium model works. And so on Udemy and as well as other places where you can watch streaming stuff, sometimes, or a lot of the time, I should say, you get 10 to 20% of the course for free through free lectures. And so I really do believe that you have to give something away for free and immediately add value to that free product. And then you can upsell. Yeah. And then get them and you got to ask for the sale. But that's what I recommend. Give part of it away for free. And then the rest of it is not free. And you can do this on Teachables as well. And let me show you how this works. So I believe in outsourcing everything that's non-mission critical. And so for me, what I do with my MBA degree program is it's actually on Teachable. And Teachable is a website where they just keep a couple % fee on whatever you sell. It's a platform, right? The best business models are platforms. But if you go to my website, Haroun Education, and then you go to enroll today, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. But if you go here, this is on Teachables. Okay, all this is on Teachables. And what I do, and these are all my amazing students from all over the world, and Jim's wife just recovered. She had surgery, and he mentioned this in the call recently, and we exchanged emails this morning. Jim, I love you, brother, and glad to hear things are going well, man. But if you go here down to, and this is Vital, I met him actually at a Udemy event actually in Berlin. Awesome. Anyway, I have students all over the world. I love every single one of them the same. But if you go down here, you'll see there's a lot of free previews, right? So these are not free previews, but these here are, right? So I did a bunch of them. So for example, I don't know if you click just a random one here, you can actually watch a preview of this. And I added closed caption as well. So what you can do is you can search the video, the word "the," and you click, it'll go directly to that point in the video. And here's that word. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I set up free previews there. But I really do believe, and the bottom line is, and I teach my students that when we're interviewing or giving speeches, if we ramble, and ramble I just did, you quickly, as a crutch, say the bottom line is you always want to give away something for free and then upsell other content. All right. Yeah. And then you wrote, what do you think I should do in this quarantine? So earlier on in today's weekly, I showed you how to get a couple of my courses for free on how to teach online based on mistakes I've made. And I got to quote Seth Godin, who's a brilliant marketing man, who said, you already have everything you need to build something bigger than yourself. You do. If you have one of these devices and internet connection, and you all do, you can make a course online as well. And when one teaches, two learn, but everybody's got something to teach. Everybody does. I think it's the best side hustle in history. And I really believe that that every problem in the world can be solved with education. and technology and acceptance, TEA, technology, education, acceptance. That was what my TEDx talk was about 8 million years ago. You can watch it online if you want. Yeah. And then you wrote here, I'm planning on launching a learning website / digital downloads and consulting by membership. What do you think? And what's the fee amount? Yeah. So what I would do is, whatever you do, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, use an engine like Teachables, for example. Just go to teachable.com. I'm not sponsored by anybody ever, please. But I think it's actually a pretty good service. So that's what I would do. And then once you do that, once you set it up and you have all your courses there, then you can charge per course, or you can give away free coupons, or you can make some of the lectures free like I showed you, or you can have it as a service as well. Next up is Neil, who's saying, good morning, Chris. Likewise. How do you suggest one to pitch an opening line on LinkedIn chat to have a conversation with the human resources person? Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that in business, relationships are more important than product knowledge. And my success rate on getting meetings with people I've never met before over LinkedIn is 95%. I don't say that to impress you. Rather, I say it to impress upon you the fact that anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. But it's really important to make it short, use the word please and thank you, and mention at least one thing in common. Okay. And I have a free book actually you can read that's going to help you. It teaches you everything about networking based on my many mistakes. So if you go to my website, Haroun Education, scroll down past the propaganda, and you'll see here this networking book. You can download it. It'll help you out tremendously. It's a couple hundred pages. I promise you it works. I put my reputation on the line. And so what I usually mention, and I go into a lot more detail in that book, is you want to find something in common. You want to find a hook. And just understand that relationships are more important than product knowledge. And so I want you to do an advanced search in LinkedIn and find people that have at least one or two things in common with you. And then reach out to them. So let's say that there's somebody that lives in an Egyptian city called Sohag that also went to McGill University. Well, I went to McGill in Montreal. Best time of my life. I don't remember very much of it. No regrets at all. And my dad is from Sohag. And so if I find somebody that went to McGill and is also from Sohag, I'll reach out to them. And I might say something like this. George, and I'm thinking of George Risk, who's an Egyptian guy I went to McGill with years ago. Nice guy. George, hope all is well. I also went to McGill, and my father's also from Sohag. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee in the next few weeks, or please let me know if you have time for a Zoom informational meeting in the next few weeks. Thanks. And you'll be amazed. And sometimes you gotta think of it this way. Close your eyes. Close your eyes, please, for this. I said close your eyes. I'm watching you. Just kidding. Close your eyes. Imagine it's 20 years in the future. And 20 years in the future, you're 20 years more successful than you already are today. And a younger version of you, a person with a lot in common with you, a younger version of you reaches out to you and asks you for an informational meeting. Would you say no to yourself and no to that person? Of course you'd say yes. So you got to network based on what you have in common, and just understand that people want to help you. And it's prophetic, and it's been true since the beginning of time. Ask and you will receive. So ask, please. Oh, the Willie D said, guess what? I launched my podcast. The first episode was yesterday. Awesome. And I had 37 views so far. I'm glad I did something. Good for you, man. That's actually pretty good for day one for podcasts. I actually launched mine recently. And I actually learned that you always want to repurpose content. The best way to work smarter, not harder, is to use what you've already created. And so for those of you that watch this weekly webcast, I have a podcast that is basically this weekly call. It's just the audio version of it. And for those of you that have subscribed to my YouTube channel, you'll see that every day I put out a different vlog. And it's always based on questions I answer on this call. And those questions I answer in this call go up to YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. And if they're short enough, we actually put them up on Instagram as well. And we're looking at Twitter as well. We just trying to figure out this whole vertical recording thing. Yeah, not Twitter, sorry. I mean TikTok, I said. Yeah, I meant. Yeah, and TikTok's funny. And for those of you who don't have TikTok, please get it. It's the funniest thing ever, man. It makes living through this nutty world of virus stuff from home more fun because people create these short little videos on TikTok. It's a free download. Please get it, please. And some are hysterical. I laugh so hard sometimes. It's good to laugh hard. All right. Aerofae is saying, hello, Chris. I'm so glad I have time to watch your live stream. Thank you. Appreciate it. Can you give me some advice on how to find my passion and make a career from it, like economics? Yeah. So what I would say is this. I used to give a couple of ways for people to find their passion. One way was this. And it's so true now, actually. Oh, my God. I would tell people, if you're given a month off and you can't travel and you can't go to school and you can't work, what would you do with your time? Whatever that is, that's your passion. And you might not know what your passion is yet. You'll develop it. You'll know it when you see it later in life. And even for those of you that started working in an industry you're passionate about and you're no longer passionate about it, that's cool, man. We all change as we age. But just think to yourself, what would you do for free? You know, what would you do if you're given a month off? You can't travel, you can't work, can't go to school. What would you do for your time? That is what your full-time gig should be. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't let anybody rent space in your head. Don't be a prisoner in your own mind to somebody else. As Les Brown says, someone else's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. I want you to do what interests you the most. And I've got a wonderful quote here. And hold on a second. I want to show you. Oh, it's just fading out. But if you keep watching it, you'll see it down there. It's a great quote from a great American poet named Mark Twain. I forgot his name for a second. It's a senior moment, it happens. But he said this. Mark Twain said, and you'll see it's starting to appear right on the side there. See it over there? There we go. Mark Twain said, the two most important days in your life are number one, the day you're born, and number two, the day you find out why. Find your passion. Find what you love doing. You know, if you're younger and you love video games and your parents want you to be a lawyer or something dumb like that, screw that, man. This is your life, not theirs. Go create a video game empire. You know, look up to see how Bobby Kotick did it. Great guy. At Activision, ticker ATVI. How did he do it? How did he do it? And then turn your business idols into your rivals. But just do whatever makes you happiest in life. You got one life to live. And the way that I'm no perfect parent, but the way I raise my kids is I never tell them what to do. I just want them to be confident, happy, and believe in God and all that good stuff as well. Yeah. Otherwise, if you pressure your kid to do something they don't want to do, then when you got small kids, you got small problems. And when you got big kids, you got big problems. You know, raise your kids to be confident and happy and make their own decisions in life. Otherwise, they'll never be happy. They'll never be happy. So, anyway, that's how and two things I tell my kids, and I've told them since birth. There's two things I say, and then what they do is they complete the sentence. And those two things are as follows. You never, and immediately they say, give up, right? You never give up. You always finish what you start. So you never give up, and you always finish what you start. And I've been telling this to Andrew, Matthew, and Dylan, or Matthew, Andrew, and Dylan, M-A-D. That's how I remember their names, or D-A-M, Andrew, Matthew, and Dylan. I've been saying this to them since the day they were born. You never give up. You always finish what you start. But I just want to raise kids that are just happy and confident. And, you know, I of course, I want them to support themselves. But at the same time, I don't want them to live their life to make me proud. You know, this is their life, and they'll never reach their full potential in life unless they live it in their own terms. And it'd be very selfish of me to tell another human being how to live their life. I can offer them, like, I feel like when I teach, I feel like I'm a waiter, hopefully a decent waiter with great food. But I feel like I'm a waiter. I give you all a menu of options, and then you choose what you want. And so, I expose my kids to a lot of different career tracks. Like my brother, who's a radiologist, which means he fixes radios. No more dad humor, I promise. He's a radiologist. He's great. He's my best friend ever. But I'm going to have Andrew, maybe sit down with him, see what it's like. And I'm going to have him sit down with a bunch of other friends of mine as well that work in various industries. So he can understand what he's passionate about, what he enjoys. And, he really enjoys video editing. He's just playing around on his computer. And so I'm like, okay, great. You can share my login to Premiere Pro and start creating videos on your own time if you want. Another one of my kids who it's been rough because he can't see his buddies. But, because of COVID, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. He started a Twitch channel, and he's actually making a bunch of money. He's doing well, but he's enjoying it. He's happy. He's in his element. I've never seen him happier. I've never seen my kids happier. So your job as a parent and a teacher, I think, is similar, to build confidence in your students and your kids, and to give them a menu of different opportunities, and then they decide. It's like that prophetic verse, which is teach a person how to fish, or give a person a fish they'll eat for a day. Teach a person how to fish they'll eat for a lifetime. I want to expose them to different ways to fish: regular fishing, fly fishing, etc. The River Runs Through It. Great movie with Robert Redford and Bradley Pitt. And as I mentioned before, a lot of people mistake me for Bradley Pitt. I'm not Bradley Pitt. Okay, I'm not. All right, but Arafay, if you enjoy economics, and you gotta love it, you gotta enjoy that to do it. Otherwise, it's very boring. It's just boring supply and demand graphs and way too much theory that you'll never use in the real world. That's what business schools teach you in general. A lot of it is bogus theory. You'll never use in the real world. But you got to enjoy it. If you love it, if you're passionate about it, if you feel it in your heart, if it makes you feel euphoric every time you think about economics, or oikos nimen, which is the Greek derivative of the word, then do it. Otherwise, find something else. Either way, I'm here to humbly help if I possibly can. Thank you. Great question. All right, Edwin in the house. Edwin, I'm smiling because I'm thinking of my son, Dylan, right here. His favorite player is in baseball is Edwin Encarnacion. And he's got his rookie card, and he's got a big poster on his wall of it as well. There are these posters called Fathead, which is the full person. Yeah, it's cool. All right, so Edwin is saying, hi, Chris. Can I get a degree in graphic design from your session? I'm already familiar with CorelDRAW and Photoshop. I haven't heard CorelDRAW in years, man. I love it. It reminds me of Michael Copeland, who's the guy that founded it. He used to work with Terry Matthews at Newbridge in Canada. Yeah. And I remember he tried to take on Bill Gates by having a Corel suite, because Corel owned WordPerfect as well for a while. And then Bill Gates in the 90s was in Toronto, and a reporter asked him, what do you think about Michael Copeland thought process to take on Microsoft Office? And Bill Gates said, who? It was awesome. Remember that well. Yeah. So I do cover Photoshop and a bunch of other graphics products. I don't cover CorelDRAW. And I don't actually have a degree in graphic design. The degree that I provide is a master's in business administration, MBA, which stands for Married But Available. It stands for Masters in Business Administration. And if you want more details on that, you can always go to my website, harauneducation.com. Thank you. Next question is, with the current state in the world, I'm thinking if I had a degree in graphic design, I could be teaching online. Yeah, dude, you don't need a degree to teach online at all. You don't need a degree in graphic design, please. It doesn't matter what your education is in order to teach. You don't need some big institution to tell you that you're good at something and that you can teach others. You don't need that. There are a lot of people that teach Photoshop and graphic design on Udemy. that have no education at all in that area, at all, at all. Like I teach a course on videography. I don't have a videography degree. I teach a course on YouTube and how to market yourself using YouTube and thumbnails and all that stuff and how to create thumbnails. I don't have a design degree. Education, like degrees from traditional schools are in secular decline. If you want to work at Apple or Google or Wells Fargo or IBM or many other great companies in America, you do not need to have a university degree. And I think that if you teach it, you'll become even better at CorelDRAW or Photoshop or whatever it is. Because when one teaches, two learn. So why don't you create a course on Udemy or anywhere else called the Complete Photoshop course? Yes, other people have done it, but what I want you to do is this. And people ask me about making courses similar to mine. And what I always recommend they do is this, with the student in mind. Go to the course of mine that you want to make a course similar to that course, and only look at the 1-star reviews and read all the 1-star reviews and address those vulnerabilities or weaknesses I have in my courses and make a better version, because the student wins. And that's why we're all in this. So I would do that as well. You know, go to the 1-star reviews of people that have made similar courses, Photoshop, CorelDRAW, whatever you want to do, and figure out how to make a better course. You know, it's educational Darwinism, and it's a beautiful thing, because the person that benefits most is the student, and that's why we're all doing this. And I really do believe that education fixes every problem in the world. And finally, with broadband internet being ubiquitous, available to everybody now has access to affordable online education. It's a beautiful thing. All right. Next question is, the Will of D is saying, is it okay to do courses with screen recordings without showing my face? So I don't think so. Like and the way that Udemy does it in other places is they try to encourage you to put your face at least in the first couple lectures, at least. But just understand that, as Maya Angelou said, people might not remember what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And so the medium is quite often more important than the message. So I think that your delivery is incredibly important. People can go to millions of other websites and learn whatever content it is you're going to teach, but there's only one you. I say that you show your face almost all the time if you can. Next up is Atul, who's saying, hey, Chris, I just passed out of school and I'm doing your financial analyst course. I would love to do your MBA program, but I have decided to pay for the fee myself. Any tips on how to make money using skills acquired from the course? Can I trade options and other derivatives? Yeah. Thanks. So I teach you a lot of stuff, and you can go to harouneducation.com if you want. Make sure there's no glare there. All right, good. You can go to harouneducation.com if you want to read up on what's taught in the course. In terms of, can you make money after taking my course? I'm going to expose you to a lot of different skills, tons of awesome skills to help you make money. But you've got to put it to practice. Like, I'll never tell you what stocks to buy or investments to buy, but I will tell you how to analyze them. It's like that prophetic saying, give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. Teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. Yeah. In terms of options and derivatives, yeah, I cover that, not in insane detail. Like, I think it's a waste of time teaching you how to understand and disaggregate Black-Scholes formulas, etc. But I'll teach you how it works. Yeah. And thank you for your interest. I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. And I see the word Trump here. I have to read. I read everything. The Will of D is saying, oh, hell yeah. Trump is live. Bye-bye. Kidding. I'm just going to open another tab. Oh, you're okay. I see. He's live right now on fake news, real news channels. Yeah. People say that a cure for the coronavirus is coming this November. It's an election year. No? Okay. And I can't just make fun of Trump. I got to make fun of Biden. I saw a graphic, an image of, I saw an image of Obama and Biden beside each other. And Barack goes, Joe, I just want to let you know that I'm endorsing you. And then Joe goes, for what? I wish Bernie was still in it only because I love Larry David. And Saturday Night Live is so funny with Larry David on it. Yeah. All right. Daniel is saying, what do you do when you're trying to set a meeting but get no answer? Do you let it go? Yeah. So I think you can ask twice and that's it. Otherwise, it gets annoying. What I recommend doing is go to my website, Haroun Education, and on the homepage, you can download my book on networking and use the concepts I teach in that book on how to ask the right way. I promise you it works. It's a couple hundred pages, 200 pages, whatever, and a couple hours of free YouTube videos as well. It works. Try it out, please. But I would only ask twice. Otherwise, it gets a little bit too much. And I've actually started to, I get a ton of messages over LinkedIn and other platforms. If people ask too many times, sometimes I'll answer politely and say, no, thanks. But a lot of times I'll just block them if it's too much. Yeah. All right. Oh, Andrew Dupree, how are you? Andrew's saying, President, geez, Chris, you're popular. No, thanks, dude. I appreciate it. And you wrote, see you at 2. Oh, good. We got a one-on-one today. Excellent. Thank you. So Andrew is he's a great guy. He is the opposite of me, though. He's an American living in Canada. I'm a Canadian living in America. So we complete each other. Yeah. And his your son had his birthday earlier this week. You had to miss class, you mentioned, and I hope you had a great day with your kid. You can't get that time back. And usually they say that by the time your child is 12 years old, you've already spent 90% of the time you're ever going to spend with them. So as awful as this predicament is, what we're in, it is terrible. And I pray a lot that people get, that people heal and that AstraZeneca and others find a permanent cure. But as awful as this is, I'm getting this amazing opportunity to bond with my 16-year-old, with Andrew. 15 actually, turned 16 on May 9th, sorry, with him. And we have a gym in the garage and we work out together. It's fun. And were it not for this awful point in human history, the health crisis, I wouldn't be able to bond with him as much, So it's been great bonding with him. Yeah. But it's great to have you here. And then Andrew is talking about, he's got a one-on-one meeting with me this afternoon. He's part of my, the platinum version of the MBA degree program. Thanks, Andrew. All right. Gopa is saying, and by the way, Andrew, thank you for being one of the first people out there to really bring this virus thing to my mind, because I didn't really, I'm in this bubble sometimes and I'm just teaching and focusing on the student and nothing else sometimes. And you were the first one, along with Jason, one of my other great students, and my brother James, to let me know what the issues are. And God bless you. Thank you. Okay. Gopa is saying, I want to really improve my domain knowledge in finance and become a consultant in companies. For me, my work-life balance is important, and work from home is important. Which companies do you recommend? Yeah. So I would say that the best way to understand which companies have a fantastic work-life balance is we're going to go to a website together called Glassdoor. Now, aside from Glassdoor, I really want you to only work for people, if you can, that have kids. It sucks working for somebody who's never had kids. That's just a workaholic. So if we go to Glassdoor together, Glassdoor, what you can do is you can research companies here. And if you register here, obviously register with a different name, because you don't, unless you're a student. I care about perception when it comes to all my students here. And a lot of my students actually come on this call with different names to ask questions for obvious reasons. But what you can do is you can search through here any company you want. It'll tell you how much money you make, whatever, all that stuff. So you pull up a company. Let me pull up, Microsoft. And then once you read about Microsoft here, And you can see here, this is my old email. I did this years ago, actually, because I didn't want people that I work with to know I was looking. But you could search here, and you can read about benefits here. Yeah, and then reviews as well, what people have to say about the company, and Satya Nadella, who's a wonderful human being and a great CEO. Yeah. So anyway, I would go there to Glassdoor just to read up on that. I think it's helpful. All right. Giannis is saying hello. How are you? Moadip is saying hi. So is Inda. Hi. Hope you're all doing well. The Willie D is saying, what software is the best to configure my courses, like screen, camera, etc.? Yeah. Is it OBS? So OBS, for those of you not familiar, that stands for Open Broadcast Software. And so there's two ways to stream using different cameras and stuff. One way is to use a product I'm using now called Wirecast. Okay. And the other way is to use a software product called OBS, which stands for Open Broadcast Software. And OBS is free, but because it's free, there are some limitations in terms of what you can do with Wirecast versus OBS. It's kind of like saying, I want to buy Microsoft Windows, but I want to save money, so maybe I'll get Red Hat Linux or some flavor of Linux, which is free. For me, it's worth it paying up for Wirecast, because this is what I do full time. Yeah. So that's what I recommend doing. Now, in terms of, let me show you one more quick product that you're going to need to get set up. It's right over here. Yeah. All right. So a lot of cameras, like you can't just, people don't realize you can't just plug in a camera and have it work. You have to actually use a piece of hardware to tell your camera, hey man, recognize the computer. And so there's a product here, and I'll show it to you right here. It's called Magewell. Okay. And it ships with this, that's it. And all you do, and it ships with this too, you plug this here, this USB, directly into your computer. Okay. And the other end of this is HDMI that plugs into your camera. And if your camera doesn't have an HDMI side of it, looks like this, you can buy adapters. They're cheap online. Cables, meaning. You plug this in and get it to work. This is a bit costly, but I find it's much better than any other solution. I've tried every solution there is. I've made every mistake there is to make when it comes to this. So that's what I would do with the camera. And I've got multiple ones here because I've got multiple cameras, whatever. And then what you can do is, if you want to record a screen, you can use, if you're using a Mac, you can use QuickTime. All you do is you go Command-Shift-5, and you'll see here the outline here of the screen. And then I can just tell it what to record and then where to save it as well. Let me hit Escape to get rid of that. Or what you can do is, if you use PowerPoint on Windows only, you can go to Insert Screen Recording and do a screen recording with audio as well in PowerPoint. It's free if you have PowerPoint anyway. What I do is a little bit different now, because I do everything in 4K. Like my students see my courses, it looks like it's 1080, but I've future-proofed the crap out of them in 4K. So what I do is this. I actually use a product called Camtasia. And then within Camtasia, what I do is I record it, and then after I record it, and I'll show you really quickly here. So let me start recording. 3, 2, 1, go. It's like Mario Kart. So we're recording, whatever. Then I stop recording. And the reason why I like this product, and you can always get student discounts, just say you're a student. The reason why I like this product is because I can export it in any format I want. So here it is there. Yeah. And then when I go to share here, I can tweak it so I export it in 4K, right? So share, local file, and then this is where you can actually tweak it right here. So I can have it at 90 frames per second, which means 90 pictures every second, so that you get all the information there. I also got the dimensions here, which are 4K dimensions. So anyway, you can check this out if you want a higher end version. My recommendation is to use what you have first, always. And if you want more advanced functionality, you can ask me here in this weekly call. I'd be happy to help you. And most software companies have trials anyway. You can get trials, yeah. All right. John Cleve from Rochester. How are you, John? John is saying, hey, Chris, what do you think about writing in the finance industry and how to get started? Any tips or tricks? Yeah. So what I would do is I would find a couple of financial writers out there that have been successful and just do research on them and look at their style and set up a one-on-one meeting with them. You can ask. Like there's a guy named Greg Ip, who I used to read all the time in Canada. He wrote for the Financial Post, and I think maybe he writes for the Wall Street Journal now, I'm not sure. But you want to find people like that, and then just sit down with them, or do a networking session online on Zoom with them. You know, you got to ask them. You know, asking will receive. Most people don't ask them. You ask them. Yeah. Aside from that, you could start reading finance books. Like there's another great guy that I used to follow a lot named James Stewart. And he wrote a book called Den of Thieves years ago. And he also wrote for a couple of magazines. He's great, right? So I've read all his stuff. And a lot of times these brilliant financial writers for newspapers, etc., they have books as well. So read their books as well. Just try to understand how they get your attention. Look at the titles of each chapter because it does transform into clickbait as well when you repurpose and copy and paste from your book directly online. So that's what I would do. Yeah. And if you want to get really involved in the weeds, there's a guy named Howard Shillett, a brilliant man, and he wrote a book called Financial Shenanigans, where he talks about accounting tricks and stuff. And he's the founder of Cifra, which is a firm I used to pay a lot of money to when I had my fund. Yeah. All right. Next question. We got Miguel. Miguel is saying, hey there. Hey, Miguel. And then the Will of D is asking for camera names. Yeah. So it's kind of, it doesn't matter what camera you have. It just depends how well you know how to use it. Like my best camera is my 2012 Canon 5D. It's Mark III. I just know how to use it really well. But since you asked, I'll let you know. So here are the angles here. So here's just four of them. We got 5 here today. So the bottom left-hand corner, one, the one I'm pointing at right here. Here's to you, kid. That's my A camera, and that's a C300 Mark II. Now, this is my B camera, meaning my second camera. Is that it? Yeah, this one here. Yeah. The one I'm pointing to, bottom right-hand corner. That's the same camera, C300 Mark II. This one here is my older C300. It's the only non-4K one I have. And by the way, you guys can't watch this in 4K. I've uploaded it to 1440. And then right here, the one there that's on the slider, that's moving, and you can tell it's kind of moving. Just pick a spot and you'll see the top left. Yeah, that one is a Sony A7 III. But again, it's not the price of the equipment; it's how you know how to use it. That's most important. Most important. Always. Yeah. And if you're looking to get a camera, like just be careful when it comes to webcams, because if a webcam says 4K, it doesn't mean it's a better camera. What we care about is what's called the image sensor. And so in cameras, there's, let me go get my old camera. I'm going to take it apart and show you real quick. The size of the sensor is the most important thing. Okay, hold on. All right. How you doing? All right. So this here is my my Canon 5. It's from 2012. So when you look at these things, what you want to do is you want to look at what's called the image sensor. And so bigger cameras usually have bigger image sensors, kind of like the brain of the camera. Now, if you're going to use a Logitech camera, like one of those little webcast ones or webcams, the image sensor is the size of your thumbnail. It's not that great. Now, when you use a camera like this one here, which is my Canon 5D, and I should have my overhead camera here set up. I don't do what I'm about to do, but I'm going to show you the insides here, okay? All right, and this is a DSLR camera. But what you've got here is you've got a mirror, okay? And I'll talk about mirrorless cameras in a second. And don't do what I'm doing ever. But I'm going to go in and pick up that mirror. And it's hard to see, but under there's an image sensor, okay? And it's actually about 36 millimeters wide. They call it 35 millimeter, okay? It's in there, okay? And then whenever you take a picture, the mirror just pops up because you're looking through the viewfinder. Now, a lot of newer cameras don't have mirrors, okay? They're called mirrorless. It's like the Sony one that's on the slider I showed you earlier. That's a mirrorless camera. But a lot of mirrorless cameras, because they're smaller, they don't have a 35 or 36 millimeter wide image sensor. They have what's called a crop sensor, meaning a smaller version of it, or an APC, which means usually it's not as great resolution. So you want to make sure you look at the size of the image sensor. And if you stick with one camera brand your whole life, then it's easier because all the lenses you buy you can use on different cameras, right? So, and usually the camera you get is what your dad or mom had when you were a kid. My dad was a Canon guy when I was a kid. He's gone Nikon recently, but he was Canon, which is why I have this. Yeah. So, and this is a great camera. I absolutely love this. This one changed my life. This is the one I actually, I made my course called the entire MBA in one course, and I had this cheap microphone which had a wire on it. And anyway, so anyway, that's that. Yeah. But I do. I know how to use, for what it's worth. I'm a nerd. Nikon, Canon, Sony, all of them. I know all their operating systems. I love it. I love it. It's fun for me, man. I don't have a job. I have a passion. It's fun. Yeah. All right. Next up is Kundan is saying, hi, sir. Call me Chris, please. According to you, in how many countries index funds a person should invest in order to diversify his portfolio for security? That's a great question. Yeah. So I never recommend having more than 5% of your liquid net worth, meaning aside from your house and apartment. I recommend never having more than 5% in any one particular investment class at all. And the same can be said for ETFs, right? Or individual stocks. Never have more than 5% of your liquid net worth in any one ETF. That's just what works for me. Because a portfolio that has 20 positions of 5% each, that's 20 positions of 5% each. It's diversified. Anytime you go much above 20, diversification doesn't work as well, mathematically speaking. Now, make sure that you diversify amongst different countries, asset classes, meaning stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate. And if you're going to buy stocks, make sure it's amongst different sectors, like retail, financial services, technology, telecom, healthcare, biotech, etc. Just to be diversified. Yeah. And never sit in cash, because cash is the worst investment ever. Because it's unfortunate, it's unfair, but countries they can dilute your net worth by printing more cash. It's out of your control. It sucks, because you work so hard to make this money, and a government goes ahead and dilutes it. So cash sucks. Yeah, I have a little bit of cash sitting on dry powder, and I've been buying a lot of stuff recently, like a hell of a lot of stocks, and also I just bought a building. We actually closed on it yesterday in London, Ontario. It's a building right by University of Western Ontario, because education is countercyclical, and we know that students are still going to pay for renting whatever. Yeah, so yeah, went through. All right, next up, John Clee is saying, beside the Schweizer books, any other tips for the CFA, which stands for Certified Financial Analyst designation? I study in the morning for an hour, and then you wrote, should I study in the morning or at night? No, dude, always an hour in the morning, okay? Always, because if you study in the morning, you're fresh. If you have to study at night, I do it on the elliptical trainer, because you're releasing more oxygen in your mind. Your mind thinks it just woke up. You can vacuum and inhale a lot more stuff. But I do the first hour of the morning, because the first hour of the morning is you're usually pretty fresh, and you can retain more stuff. Flashcards, no, I don't. I don't do that. I find it just takes time. And you're saying, should I do anything other than Schweizer? No, just do Schweizer. That's it. That's it. It's kind of like when you study for the GMAT. Only use Princeton Review because what happens is if you use different methodologies, it'll mess up your head. Don't read the textbooks that the CFA provides because it'll take you too much time. Read the Schweizer books, get them on sale, get them used for $30, which will save you hundreds of dollars. Buy them used on eBay and just use that. And one other thing I'll tell you to wrap this up is a great way. Like when I read multiple choice questions, a lot of the times I can get them right without reading the question. And I'm a dummy, okay? I'm no smart dude. But the reason why is whenever you write multiple choice tests, which a lot of the CFA is, some of it is not. Like level 2 is a lot of essay writing stuff, or some essay writing. But with multiple choices, think like a lawyer. Can you contest the answers in a court of law? And so if the answers are A, B, C, D, and if one of the answers has the word always in it, that's wrong. Like I can't say, this microphone is always gray. Well, no, maybe it's a different shade of black. Okay, so always is wrong. If an answer says never, it's wrong because a lawyer, lawyers are a pain in the ass, but you got to think like them sometimes. Unless you're a civil rights lawyer, then I love you. But if the word never is in it, there's a chance that's wrong as well, right? Like I could say, this never breaks down. Obviously, you could find a solution for it. Yeah. Reminds me when I used to tell my kids, I'm going to take my thumb off. Watch this. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so the answers that are usually right are the wishy-washy ones. You know, think of a Venn diagram, the one where it kind of intersects. Like you could say, in many occasions, using the air conditioner makes me colder. That's right. Or in some occasions, the Intel processor, like it did in 1994, has a floating point decimal issue and doesn't work. It's true, right? So just avoid black and white answers or binary type answers. You gotta have if the word many or some or on occasion is in the answer, it's usually right. If the word always or never is in the answer, it's wrong. Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got Kundan who's saying, what's the difference between index funds and ETFs? Yeah. So ETF stands for exchange traded funds. And you can buy ETFs that represent an index. Okay. So if you buy ticker SPY, that's the S&P 500 index fund, right? It's an index, but it's also an ETF. Okay. So some ETFs are indexes, but not all of them. And if they're indexes, they're called index funds, like the S&P, which is the SPY ticker, or the NASDAQ tech stocks, which is the Qs, QQQ is the ticker. But there's also ETFs that are not index funds, right? They're just like if you enter in the ticker for gold, the ETF for gold, it's GLD. It's not really an index. It's an individual commodity you can buy. Next up is Manas who's saying, "Hi sir, do I need a website for blogs?" Yeah, I mean you can get started if you want. Like a lot of websites you can get are free, like WordPress, for example. Yeah, it doesn't cost you any money to start a WordPress website. You can do that if you want to. You want to make sure though that you send your blogs to multiple platforms. Like it's like they call it worm encoding, WORM, write once, read many. And so if you want, I'll show you what I do actually. So I actually have it on my website, but it's not the only place where you can go to actually see my vlogs or blogs or whatever it is. But if we go to my website here, if we go here to vlog, this is basically blogs here. Okay. So here's today's episode. Okay. April 30th. If you're watching the replay. And then every day it's here. We post them here every day. And we also post the exact same content. We repurpose it. It goes on forever. I've been doing 618 days in a row. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, which hopefully means many, many years. But I repurpose the content and we also put the exact same content in LinkedIn. And you got to be consistent. Like we do 9 a.m. my time every day, right? So the one that hit today, it's right here 10 minutes ago, I guess. They were a little bit late today. Is should you invest in distressed debt? Right. And as you can see, the setup there is similar to, there's Disney. Nice. Oh, yeah. I was talking about a bond here issued in Egypt in pound sterling, written in French. All right. But as you can see, this is all, it's a similar setup I got here. And so when I do this 3-hour call every Thursday, we repurpose the content to put it here. And we jazzed up a bit more too. My team's great. And then we also put the exact same thing in Twitter. So I'll show you. You write once, read many. So it goes to my Twitter account daily. And we'll see here. Hold on a second. I usually use it on my iPhone. Chris Haroun. Oh my God, I feel like an old man with a VCR. Right here. Yeah, here it is here. Yeah. And I pin this to the top. This is just my commercial for my MBA thing. And then here they'll post it. But it's got to be less than 2 minutes and 20 seconds in order to be able to post it here to Twitter. It's kind of messed up. I don't know why. And then I do the same thing on all my other social platforms as well. Right. So write once, read many. Remember that. And if you want, you can use a website called Hootsuite. It's a great Canadian company from Vancouver. Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE. And they have a platform where you can do 30 free messages every month to send it to different platforms at different times. You can start off with that. If you're going to upload video, though, don't use that because you got to upload video natively to the platforms. Otherwise, they penalize you from an SEO or search engine optimization perspective. All right. Next up is Saloni. Hey, Saloni is saying, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. You've given me a new path and mindset. So grateful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And this is spiritual, and this is just me. But I don't worry when it comes to business because I always tell myself, God knows what's going to happen, and that puts me at ease. And sometimes in your life, you might question your faith, and I'm trying to make this universal, but don't worry, because years from now, you'll understand why it happened. Like if something happened to you career-wise that drove you nuts, like you were fired and it's not fair because you made the firm money and I don't understand. My boss thinks he hired his assassin. He's an insecure prick. Yes. Years later, you look back upon that and say, I'm so grateful to God that happened because that frustrating experience forced me to start my own company. Something like that. You know, with crisis, within reason, of course, with crisis in a career or in business, with crisis comes opportunity. Shishir is saying, hi. Hey, Fred, how are you? Pratik is saying, good morning. Likewise. The Willa D is saying, why did oil go below $1 and gas is still expensive? Yeah. So the way it works is people transact in what's called the futures market. And so you can buy a product in the future and book the price today. Okay. And the reason why the future market exists is because and the reason why a lot of times that when people talk about derivatives and futures markets, it's Chicago Board of Exchange, CBOE, Chicago. The reason is because hundreds of years ago, when the railroads were the most important form of transportation, when you would ship cotton and wheat and other crops from the East Coast, from East Coast time zone, and you'd ship it to Middle America or vice versa, you'd have to actually set a time and a price in the future when that product arrived. What would the farmer be able to get for that? And so you're kind of betting on and locking in a future price for it. And so a lot of companies that use a lot of oil, what they'll do is just in case oil goes up a lot, they'll lock in the price of oil in the future today. And I'll give you an example, and I'll talk about why it went negative soon. So, and I'll talk also about the difference between WTI and, crude and different prices of oil globally as well, if that's interests you. But so there's this airline called Southwest, ticker LUV. because LUV is their Lovejoy is their home airfield in Texas. But Southwest Airlines, discount carrier, kind of like Ryanair in Europe and Ireland. What Southwest did in the early 2000s is they realized that, oh my goodness, our biggest expense is oil. And so for about a decade or so, what Southwest did was they bought futures contracts, which would lock in the price of oil at $30 a barrel for them for the next 10 years. And so that means that they would get oil for $30 a barrel no matter what. And then oil went up to about $150. It was a super cycle in 2008, first half of 2008, because China was buying every commodity on the planet to prepare for the Beijing Olympics. And so what happened was Southwest, when oil prices went up a lot, they knew it would hurt the competition, meaning other airlines. And so they did something very predatory, which is they started cutting their ticket prices. Business is war for lots of people, but they locked it in the future. Now, what happened with oil recently, and the reason it went negative, and I'll talk about the gas pumps in a second too. What happened with oil is there was so much excess supply that wasn't being used because factories weren't working because everyone was at home because of Corona. There's so much excess supply that it would cost you money to buy it and then store it. You'd have to store it somewhere. And a lot of these big ships in the Baltic were, cost a couple $100,000 every day just to keep them afloat. They were full of oil, and you couldn't. If you bought more oil, you couldn't. Where would you put it? And so all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh my God, it's going to cost me too much to store this stuff." I'm panicking. I'm being emotional. I'm trading the futures market, and oil went negative. And it did because of the futures markets and because of storing oil. Now, gasoline's a little bit different because when you and I buy gasoline at the pump, we're not buying the future value of gas. We're buying it today. And so that explains the discrepancy between the price of oil and the price of gas, and why the futures for oil went down to negative $40, whatever it is. Now, there's different types of oil in the world. There's WTI. And then there are other types. WTI stands for West Texas Intermediary, okay, or intermediate. And it's oil from West Texas, where America has a lot of oil. And it's slightly sweet. Like some idiot must have tasted it. I'm thinking of Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I taste your milkshake and your oil. So it's actually a bit sweeter. And that's important to mention because West Texas Intermediate, or WTI oil, it's usually $4 cheaper than Brent crude, and Brent crude is probably the best flavor of oil. It's the most pure, and it's basically a combination of 15 different oil fields, most of which are around the North Sea. But usually WTI trades at a $3 to $4 discount because it's sweet and some idiot tasted it. I drink your milkshake. I got to watch that movie again. There Will Be Blood. Great performance by Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got David is saying, I've taken your YouTube course as well. It was awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And it's interesting because the only reason I made that course, or one of the reasons at least, is because this is week 88, but on week number 10, one of my Udemy students came on the call, and her name is Sasha Stevenson. And she started giving me advice, really nice advice, on my YouTube images and stuff. And I thought, oh my God, this is so nice. Who's this person trying to help? And there's the whole giving mentality, right? I love it. And so I contacted her. I've never met her. She's Canadian. She lives in Indonesia. And she is an internet sensation there. And she's got over 100 million views on her YouTube channel. And so I said, hey, let's make a course together. And the best way to learn something is to teach it. Like, remember when you were younger and one of your buddies had problems with math or whatever it was and asked for your help, and you kind of taught them and you did better on the test because of that. And it felt good to teach too. It always does. Because when one teaches, two learn. Okay. And Manas is saying, how can I generate audience for my blogs or for copywriting? Yeah. So you got to think of yourself as a thought leader, and you have to write a lot and consistently too. So if you release a vlog or an article, usually every week at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. Just be consistent so people will look for it. And then just the way to become a thought leader is to think like a thought leader. It's kind of like the Rodin sculpture. I think, therefore I am. And you just have to opine or write a hell of a lot. And don't worry, because if you're consistent, it's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. Baseball reference. You got to see that movie, Field of Dreams. I love it. But if you're consistent and you do it a lot, then eventually it will work. Eventually it will work, and you will get an audience. Like for me, when I started doing this, when I started doing this weekly call, and you can go back and look at the first couple of weeks, but I would do the call and there was like no one on it. I was like, oh my God, there's crickets. What do I do? And so I had to make up stuff for dead air. But you just got to tell yourself, I'm all in. I don't have a plan B, and I'm going to do this forever. And I don't give a damn if I get no likes, and if nobody, watches my videos or reads my blogs. I'm doing it forever. I'm all in. I'm committed to it, and I'm never going to quit ever. I'm going to do it forever. And eventually it'll work. But you got to keep in mind that a lot of great publishers like, J.K. Rowling, as well as C.S. Lewis and Agatha Christie, they all have one thing in common, which is they were rejected over and over and over again. And then finally, they took enough rejection and it started to work. But you'd never hear of them if they weren't cool with failure. You got to be cool with not having many people read your blogs or watch your vlogs for a long, long time. Because as Warren Buffett said, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. You got to be long-term focused and committed as well. And never give up. Ever, ever, ever. And while you put out your content, I want you to always try to push the goalpost out, so to speak, and try to improve your content. I've improved mine a lot. I still make a lot of mistakes. I still experiment in these calls with 5 different angles. And what's killing me today is I can't get that stupid fading to go away. Maybe I'll go here to cut. I think it's cut, maybe. Cut, yeah. But I take chances. I take a lot of chances, and I fail a lot. And as Michael Jordan said, I failed over and over and over again. I got the poster up there. I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed. And by the way, I'm using pedals to do all this stuff because I'm a nerd. Yeah. And pedals are like keyboards. When you plug them in to a USB port, you can map certain keys in order to make it happen. But you just gotta be resilient. And you'll learn how to be a better vlogger and better writer over time as well through practice. Repetition is the mother of all skill. You'll get there. You just got to be resilient. Yeah. And you also have to be thick-skinned, like Teflon. If somebody criticizes you unfairly, you got to tell yourself, unjustified criticism is nothing more than a disguised compliment. But you also have to love writing and love opining about whatever topic it is you're writing about. The only way to become a self-leader, the bottom line is, the only way to become an expert in one area and a thought leader is to write a lot or do a lot of vlogs. All right. And you only have to be writing business one time. Remember that. Next one is 4Geo is saying, Chris, maybe a bit off topic, but which programming languages would you recommend to learn first and in which order? Yeah, I'd start with Python only because it's the number one language today. I would start with that. Yeah. It all depends on the time as well. Like when I was younger, it was COBOL. I am that old. I did COBOL, a lot of it. Then I did Java when Gosling wrote it and released it for Sun Microsystems back in '95, which I hated because I hate object-oriented stuff because it's too complicated and I'm dumb. Then I moved on to Visual Basic. Then I did C++, which I hated as well. And then I messed around with Python and other stuff too, yeah. But I would start with Python because it's the most important language right now. Then what I would do is I would learn JavaScript. JavaScript is different from Java, by the way. Completely different. And JavaScript is basically what a lot of people use in PDFs as well as within browsers. So when you go to a web page and it's more dynamic and less static, a lot of times it's because of JavaScript. So I would learn that as well. Python, then JavaScript. Okay. And Manas is saying, hope you are good. God bless you and your family. Thank you. And God bless you and your family 10 times more. And I like your emojis too. Thank you. And William is writing, how can I get a company to overlook that I don't have a business degree yet and get at least an interview as a financial analyst? Yeah. So what I recommend doing is I recommend going to my website and downloading my book on how to network, because I promise you the answers are in there. It'll help. It's free. Okay. HarounEducation.com. Scroll down. And it's right down here. You can get it for free. Get it for free. And then set up a lot of informational meetings and find somebody and people that, or a lot of people that have something in common with you. It works. It works. Just read the book. I promise you it works. Relationships are more important than product knowledge. Yeah. And Shishir is saying, I've started my business 7 months ago after doing a job in a multinational company for 2 years. I started a digital marketing agency in partnership. Please suggest me your course I should take. Yeah. So I would, and I'm learning all the time about digital marketing. I'm actually talking to a couple different companies now, and I'm deciding which one to go with for just to outsource a lot of SEO stuff. Yeah, I have a course. I do have a course actually with Trevor Geller, who he used to work at Udemy, and he spent a couple years at Google working in AdWords. And so I have a course we did joint together. But I don't consider myself an expert in that area. I have a course called the Complete YouTube course. You can take that. That might help. Aside from that, I don't have anything yet, but it's coming very, very soon. Yeah. All right. And Miguel is saying, hey, Chris, it's my first time here. Welcome. I hope you join us again. I run my own startup, and I'm at the point where for the specific function of my app, I need to be linked to a big brand. How do I pitch to them? Yeah. So go to my website, HarounEducation.com. Download my book on how to network, and then get a ton of informational meetings. And you can get them over Zoom as well. It works. You just got to try it. Get a ton of informational meetings with people you have something in common with that work at big companies. And all you need is one big customer to put your company on the map. And maybe that contract with that company can be a free trial so that you can use that reference customer's name to say that we are working with them, or we've given them a free trial. They're using it, and yeah, that sort of thing. But relationships are more important than product knowledge. You're going to have to leverage LinkedIn a lot. And the bottom line is just read my networking book, which you can get for free from HarounEducation.com. I promise you it will help you. And if you have questions based on that, let me know, please. Thank you. All right. All right. Next up is, and in terms of Miguel, in terms of pitching, like to raise money, I have a vlog. So every year, the French embassy here, they bring the entire, or a big number of students from a great MBA school in Paris called HEC, and they asked me to present, and I do it every year. And so recently I did one, maybe it was 2 years ago, on how to raise money. And just do a search on HEC and how to raise money on my YouTube page, and you'll find it there. It's like an hour long. Yeah. Yeah. Next up, the Will of D. And if I missed any question in between, I'm so sorry. Just paste it again. Thanks. The Will D is saying, I want to reteach your materials in Arabic. Can we discuss an agreement? Yeah. So I actually, thank you. I actually have already have an Arabic course, which is an entire MBA in one course. And then I have a free course called 40 Tips. So I've already done that. Thank you. Yeah. At some point, yeah, I'd love to talk about it. But as of right now, I'm so jammed. It will take me so long to gather all the materials together. But if there's one that's of interest to you, let me know here. And the best way for us to talk is always here on this open forum. Let me know which one. Yeah. All right. And then Manas Roy wrote, "Long live Canadians." Thank you. And Roy was the last name of God. He was a great goalie. He played for the Canadian Patrick Roy, or Roy. Yeah. He was fantastic. I have his rookie card. Oh, Peachy one too. Yeah. And Vardic is saying, how do you stay motivated to make daily videos? What measures do you take to not burn out? Yeah. So I do a lot of things, and I do burn out. I make 6 hours of brand new content every week, not including what I do on Thursdays for my MBA degree students. Plus, I do hours and hours of Q&A with them and one-on-ones. And the reason I'm able to do it is because I don't have a job. I have a passion. I absolutely love what I do. And as Confucius said, find an occupation you love and you'll never have a job for the rest of your life. Yeah. And when you do something you love, you're incredibly productive. And if you're not productive, I've got a life hack for you. Give me a second here. All right. So for my MBA degree students, I have this I have this daily schedule, and a lot of them use it, and their productivity has gone through the roof. And I complete this at night, and this is available. I have it in PDF format, OneNote, tons of versions for my MBA degree students. You can also get a freemium version, a free version, I should say, which is kind of scaled down here. And you can download this from harouneducation.com/schedule, all lowercase, schedule. Okay, harouneducation.com/schedule. And I complete this, or actually this more advanced version down here, every night before I go to bed. And I basically write down what I'm going to be doing the next day. And before I create the next one the next day, before I go to bed, I score myself on how I did the previous day. It's the first thing I see. It's right by my sink in my bathroom. First thing I see, last thing I see at night. Last thing I see at night, first thing I see in the morning. And so it's kind of like a mini goal setting thing. And it's personal too. Like for me, I at the very top, and you change this, do whatever you want. I put God first, then family, and then students. And every day when I wake up, I'm always in a great mood because I do a couple of lines of blow. No, I don't. I'm just kidding. No. Oh my God. Dude, I'm always one dumb comment away from destroying my life. Absolutely destroying everything I've worked so hard for. No, when I wake up, what I do is before I get out of bed, I read little passages from the Bible on my iPad above my bed. And then what I also do, and this gets me into a great peak mental state. I thank God for 10 different things before I get out of bed. And they're always this, in this order. Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, Christine, Mom, Dad, Jamie, Katie, Elizabeth, my students. Okay, and those are Christine, my wife, my kids, and then my brothers and sisters, and my parents, and you, my students. You inspire me. I love all of you. And I'm grateful. But I try to take off at least one day at work. And it's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time that, God rested on the seventh day. And of course he didn't have to, but he kind of, just to show us that you got to take a day off a week, man. You're going to burn out, you have to. And if you're good at what you do, if you love what you do, you can do it always. Even Sandy Koufax, he wouldn't pitch on the Sabbath, Friday at sundown until, Saturday at sundown. But he's still, probably the best damn pitcher in baseball history. Or actually second to Bob Gibson. Yeah. All right. And Vipul is saying, good morning, Chris. Hope you are healthy and safe. Thank you. Likewise. Vardic in the house. Vardic is saying, hey, Chris, what should make for a good profile to get into your dream business college when you do not have straight A's to boast? Yeah. And you don't need straight A's to get into a great university. So I think what you can do, if you want, go to udemy.com. I have a course I did a couple years ago, which works exceptionally well, which is called, how to get into the best MBA schools or business schools. It's 30 minutes. It'll teach you everything you need to know. But basically what you want to do is, if you don't have great grades, you want to make sure that you ace the GMAT. And the GMAT is not an intelligence test. And I did very well on it because it's not an intelligence test. It's how you write the test. And I recommend taking Princeton Review's course on the GMAT and study more than anybody else, and you will ace it. Second thing I recommend is to buy a book that's going to help you write your essays. And the book is called this. It's called Marketing Yourself to the Top Business Schools. And it's written by a husband and wife team called Carpenter and Carpenter. Just remember, business schools, Carpenter and Carpenter. You'll find it. And it's 150 pages. And go on a long walk by yourself. And this is what I did actually when I was applying for Columbia to get my MBA there. I went on a long walk, but I also played golf by myself. And in between holes, I would sit down and write in pencil in the margins. And that book will help you to kind of diversify or to make yourself look more interesting to the admissions director. Yeah, so that's what I recommend. And don't worry if you didn't have straight A's. That's cool, man. If you do well in the GMAT, and if you write great essays, and if you do a lot of pro bono work to help make other people's lives better, you got a shot. Because you got to think like whoever is reading the application. Usually it's somebody that sits in the admissions office and they see all these applications from all these people all over the world that have done great things. And how are you going to stand out? How are you going to be different? So take my course for more details on that. And as always, if you have questions, ask me in the course or ask me here even. Thank you. Yeah, but I do have friends that have gotten in Harvard Business School with just under a 3.0 GPA, and I've helped them tremendously with their essays as well. A lot of people that work for me have gone to HBS, although 2/3 of HBS is BS, okay? But you can't say that about a Haroun Business School. It's different. Yeah. All right, next up is Mohoadip, who's saying, I'm a web developer. I'm very interested in mixing the two worlds, finance and technology. That's exactly me. Exactly me. I've always been passionate about finance and tech. Yeah. Number one, how can I do it? Number two, what would be the correct or sequential order I can use your Udemy courses for? Yeah. So what I would recommend is if you love finance and tech, to work at a tech consulting firm like I did. I worked at Accenture. It's a great company actually, and do it for 4 years while you're younger, I should say. But don't do it when you have kids because it's like the army. You know, you go to fight your battles on the enemy's turf, or within consulting, you're sent to the clients, wherever the client location is. And it might be out of town. Not that there's parallels between an enemy and a client, but sometimes there are. But that's what I would do. I'd probably go and work at Accenture. I think it's a great place to start a career as well. You know, they will underpay you big time. But you'll learn. It'll feel like you're getting a graduate degree in business and tech at the same time. That's what I recommend. And then you're going to get to a point where you got to think to yourself, what do I love more, finance or tech? And if you love finance more, then what you can do is you can go work at a hedge fund like I did, or a venture capital firm like I did, and invest in tech companies. Or if you decide that you like tech more than finance, then you can go and work at any big investment bank or any big bank in the data analysis department, so to speak, and use software to analyze trends, that sort of thing. And there's going to be a lot more AI companies out there that do financial services stuff. Like there's a company I used to be an investor in. I am no longer. I sold my venture capital position, called Palantir, which is the biggest employer now in Palo Alto. And Palantir is bigger than Facebook there now. They have a great product called Metropolis and one called Gotham. And basically, it's a big data or artificial intelligence company. They're awesome. That looks for patterns in data. And they help a lot of big financial services companies to understand if there are cybersecurity threats, that sort of thing. And governments hire them as well, a lot, to help look at data to figure out human trafficking issues. As well as the U.S. government. Actually, this is fascinating. The Obama administration, the only reason they found Osama bin Laden was because they used Palantir software to find him. Yeah, so check it out. Go to Palantir's website. And if you're absolutely passionate about artificial intelligence-based trading algorithms or investing algorithms, you can check out a company founded by a brilliant man named Jim Simmons. And the name of that company is Renaissance Technologies. And in terms of my courses, I mean, you'll get a more comprehensive overview of everything if you take my MBA degree program. Just go to harouneducation.com. But if all you want is a little bit of finance, then take my Complete Financial Analyst course. Yeah. Next up is Will D is saying, shall I ask for a column? Do you think it's good for me? Yeah, I did it for a while. I had my own column in Inc. magazine, and then I didn't like being told what to write about, so I don't do it anymore. But it can only help. Like a lot of times people that write for Forbes don't actually work for Forbes, they're just subcontracted. So yeah, I think there's only upside in that. And Nimrit is saying, hi Chris, hey, how are you? Next up is, Chris, do you know, or does anyone here know, what interactive stories are called? They're published books. When you open, they make a sound either by clicking or by using a pen. Yeah. It sounds interesting. Sounds like something that an iPad could disintermediate pretty quickly. But the first thing that comes to my mind, Will, is just Hallmark greeting cards. You know, when you open them up and you hear a song and whatnot, or a little bit of music. And I've actually there's a little technology product in there. It's a tiny little circuit. I bought them before, a bunch of them, and created my own versions of it. You just record it, attach it to a USB port in your computer, dirt cheap, and you can get it from AliExpress or from eBay as well. Yeah. All right. And then give me 1 second, guys. Hold on. All right, hold on. I lost my space. It happens. The older I get, the better I was. I just had a senior moment there. Oh, here we go. I found it. Okay, good. Next up is Nirmit, who's saying, how would you differentiate between ROI and ROA? I just looked at the Walmart 10K meeting annual report and got a little bit confused with the return on investment denominator. Yeah. So usually, whenever you hear the word return on, it means net income divided by something else. So if I made up something ridiculous, like what's the return on this chip? That means net income divided by chip. And the way to think about it is, for every $1 in the denominator, how many pennies are you making in the numerator? I'll give you an example. So return on assets, ROA. Because it's return on, it means net income divided by something. Return on assets means net income divided by assets. That means for every $1 in the denominator, how many pennies you generate in the numerator? Return on assets means net income divided by assets. For every $1 in assets, how many pennies of net income are you generating? If you look at return on equity, that would mean for every $1 in equity or ownership in the company, how many pennies are you generating in net income? That's the best way to look at it. And for the rest of your life in finance and accounting, I always want you to assume the denominator is 1. So you can tell yourself this. For every $1 in whatever on the denominator, how many pennies am I generating for the numerator? That's the best way to look at it. Yeah. All right. Next up is, how do you do a feasibility study? Yeah, it all depends. So I teach a lot about how to write business plans. You can join me if you want my MBA degree program. I can teach you more about that. But when it comes to like feasibility study in general, it basically means analyzing the heck out of a market before deciding to enter it. And so I've actually been on the boards of companies when I worked in venture capital, where I would written literally 420-page due diligence reports, right? It's kind of like a feasibility study because we're putting a lot of money to work. The font size in those reports was 8 million. No, I'm just kidding. It was Helvetica is always 11. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Manas is writing, Dear Sir, whenever I open up a company, I promise you'll always be my financial advisor. Thank you. And you have a number of awesome emojis. Appreciate that. Thank you. And I see that 100 one too. And I didn't know what that meant. And I asked my kids about it. They use it in Snapchat a lot. But thank you. My favorite ones are the prayer ones. God bless you. Thank you. All right. Andrew is saying, hello, Chris. There is a stick or a plug Wi-Fi booster that increases Wi-Fi speed. Yeah, you mentioned this before, I think. And I remember looking into this. I think it was like 8 months ago on this call or something. And it was fascinating. I forgot to look into it in more detail. Very cool. But I'll show you how I do it, actually. Oh, my God. I've been on Wi-Fi the whole time. That's moronic. So I'm actually on, let me go here, go back on Ethernet. And let me just double check to see if the stream is good. Excellent connection. Thank you. It's good. Yeah. And if you're going to stream, make sure that if you look at a sample of the stream, you set it to lowest resolution possible. Otherwise, it'll suck. It'll take bandwidth away. Yeah. All right, Andrew. Always great to have you, brother. Always great. And Andrew was the very first person. He's got a soft spot in my heart. He's the very first person that got accepted to the MBA degree program. Yeah. So always great to have you, Andrew. Thank you. Okay. And then PinTradeX is saying Schwab. I'm a big fan of Schwab's interface. I avoid any company that uses purple as a marketing color scheme. Yeah. And I met Charles Schwab and his wonderful wife 2 years ago at a small event at a house in Atherton. I think it was Philippe Lafont's house. And that's actually where I met Reed Hastings. And Reed's the founder of Netflix. He was talking to about 10 of us about as part of the Tipping Point charity. He was talking to us about how he wants to use education to solve every problem in the world and all that stuff. And I think it's only a matter of time until Reed and Netflix gets into the online education market. Yeah. Now I forget what the hell I was going to say. Oh yeah, Schwab. Yeah, and you said you avoid companies that use purple as a marketing color scheme. It's interesting because colors are, like, in some countries, certain colors can be, it can be offensive. I try not to use red too much because I find that it's offensive in some cultures. And purple in South America, I think, is offensive. But what you can do is this. You can go to the color wheel, and this is something that Isaac Newton discovered right after he discovered gravity. Before that, we used to just float everywhere. But if you look at the color wheel, it's colors that are opposite each other look really, really good. And so what I use a lot, actually, and I'm using today, is blue and yellowish. Okay, so you got to find colors that are opposite each other. And I'm using that, or am I using that? Hold on. No, I am. Yeah, right behind me. I'll show you in a second. So if you pick colors that are opposite each other, it tends to work out well. It's very subtle, but I've got behind here, one of my lights is yellow. And above there, behind my Haroun degree here, Haroun. We used to get paid. We used to go to dinner, my family and I, and we're waiting at our table, and they'd say Haroun, party of six, Haroun, party of six. And up there, I've got yellow as well. Okay, so blue, yellow, blue. Because on the color wheel, yellow and blue, again, are opposite each other. And so a lot of times when you make your thumbnails for your videos, meaning your YouTube images, the 16:9 ones, try to use colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. Yeah. And if you're not sure what color to use and you're lost, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? What's the least offensive color globally? It's actually blue. Yes, I've studied this. There's a science to it. I know it's out there. I'm a nerd. I got way too much time on my hands. But like for my first big course on Udemy, an entire MBA in one course, the slide structure is very simplistic. They were blue. So blue is the least offensive color. Yeah. You'd think green, but it's actually blue. And I don't use too much green because if I do green screening, it doesn't work out for me. And the problem is, like I used to green screen a lot, and you guys have probably noticed that I've been on this webcast every week for ages. You probably noticed I don't use much green screen anymore. The reason why I don't is because I have green eyes. And you can see up top there above the timer, which is for my one-on-ones for my MBA degree students. I've got a green screen there. I used to roll down. My eyes are green. And so green screening, it just doesn't work for me. And thanks, Mom. Thanks for the green eyes, Mom. I love you. And a lot of people have green eyes, actually. When they do green screening in movies, they have to wear contacts. Yeah. Or they recolor it with DaVinci Resolve, which takes 8 million years afterwards. DaVinci Resolve is what editors use for coloring stuff. And there's a science to it as well. Like I'll show you. So because I record a lot, I do 6 hours of content, not including Thursday, for my students. And so what I have to do actually is before we start to record, and I haven't seen my editor for months because of what's happened. Good guy, Matt, I miss him. And he works remotely. But I actually have to hold this up before I record anything so that we can get the same color everywhere. And you'll find that the pigment in my skin is a little bit better on this one here, my oldest, cheapest camera. We're trying to get the other ones to color balance. And that's why people use what's called white balance. So the color white is different Cameras don't know what the color white is because the color white is different indoors versus outdoors based on what kind of lights you have. And so you got to what's called white balance before you start recording. Yeah. All right. I talk a lot. I know. And Quody Cost is saying, hello, Chris. Good day to you. Likewise. Jazz Deep is saying, thanks a lot. You're most welcome. Miguel has a question, which is, what would you do if you were 19 years old today and you're taking your first try on building your first startup? Yeah. So the question is, if you're 19 years old today, what would you do with your first startup? So what I would do is I would write a business plan, because failing to plan is planning to fail. And most startups fail partially because they don't write a business plan. They don't plan accordingly. And I have a business plan course you can take, the Complete Business Plan course. You can go to my website, Haroun Education, find it there, or go to Udemy's website and find it there as well. And throughout this course of mine, and there's a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee as always, but if I convince you, as you're taking my course and I'm helping you write your business plan in the course, if I convince you not to start a company, I've done my job. I'm a positive person, but I really do believe there has to be a filtering process when you're writing your business plan and you're preparing to, I don't know, drop out of school or whatever it might be, or spend a lot of money on a company. Partner with me. Let me help you. Take my course. I'll help you. And if I help you launch a company and it's very successful, then I've done my job as well. But before you start a company, please write a business plan. Take my course, the Complete Business Plan course. I promise you it'll help you a lot, or your money back. Yeah. Also, another thing I do is this. After you write the business plan, you launch your company, give yourself 2 years. And then after you're 2 years into your new company, I want you to ask yourself this. I want you to say after 2 years, I've learned a lot of stuff I didn't really anticipate was going to happen. Had I known 2 years ago about all these new problems I'm having, or whatever it is, with this company, had I known 2 years ago about these problems, would I have still have launched this company? And if the answer is no, shut it down immediately and move on. You only have to be right in business one time. And you're going to start tons of companies in your life. And then only one has to be touched by God, so to speak. And Mark Cuban, he's a famous investor. He's on Shark Tank. But he said you only have to be right in business one time. And I completely believe him. And a lot of most famous entrepreneurs or business visionaries or billionaires or whatever, they failed a lot. You just don't know about the failures. Like Bill Gates, his first company with the late, great Paul Allen, his business partner, who passed away recently. His first company was called Trafo Data, which basically, when you're driving on the road and you drive over bumps or those wires, it feels like ba-bump, ba-bump, to count cars. He did something like that, but he failed. And you just got to tell yourself, I don't give a damn what people think, but give yourself 2 years. Write the business plan first, then give yourself 2 years. And then 2 years later is kind of a sanity check where you got to be intellectually honest and check your emotions at the door. And then just ask yourself, had I known about these issues 2 years ago, would I have still launched the company? Last thing I'll say is when you start your company and run your company, I don't want you to get too happy when things go well. You probably think, what the hell is that, Chris? Chris, you're supposed to be positive. You're supposed to hype me up. I don't want you to be too happy when things go well. Because when things don't go well, I don't want you to freak out. And I've worked for a lot of billionaires. And some of them, I won't name who, they're borderline Asperger's syndrome, I think. Because they were just very unemotional. And you got to be that way in business if you want to be extraordinarily successful. Dale Carnegie once said that you got to realize in business that people are often creatures of emotion and less so creatures of logic. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is Warren Buffett once said that the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. You got to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. Be very unemotional in business and you'll do well. And see crisis as an opportunity. All right, cool. We got about 20 minutes left. So what I'll do then is, give me 1 second, guys. I've got this timer here I set up. It's so cool. It actually looks like it's been superimposed, but it's not. And so I can pull it down as well. I'll do it for my MBA students, but I'm going to just do the timer. So we got 20 minutes left. Then we got to wrap it up. So I can do my MBA students only office hours and one-on-ones with my MBA students. Okay, cool. Next up is Daniel saying, can you elaborate on what you said that the DOJ will make Amazon and Amazon Web Services break up in 2 years? Yeah, in two companies. Yeah, I said it a couple of weeks ago. I remember that. Yeah. So I think that, so when companies get too powerful, government entities try to break them up. And, governments are elected by the people for the people. And so what they're trying to do is try to foster an environment where there's more competition, because competition is good for the consumer. And so when it came to Bell, Alexander Graham Bell, brilliant man, invented the telephone. And Bell was just too powerful. And so what happened was Bell got broken up, and AT&T got broken up, I should say, into mini Bells. So AT&T became the long distance arm. Then you had Verizon, or Bell Atlantic, I should say, Pacific Bell, and they've all rebranded. You got Bell Canada as well, Southwestern Bell. And that was a good thing because there's more competition, and the price of telecommunications is a lot lower now. And the government tried to do that with Microsoft, actually, in 1999, to break up Microsoft into the baby bills, because Microsoft was too powerful. They didn't really succeed. Janet Reno tried, district attorney, didn't really succeed. But the EU did force Microsoft to bundle Windows without Internet Explorer. And actually, the government years ago, people don't know this, but back in 1994, Intuit, which is the company that makes Quicken and QuickBooks, Microsoft tried to buy them. And the DOJ, Department of Justice, said no, which is a good thing. It's a good thing because Microsoft had 95% share of the client-server software market back then. Now, when it comes to Amazon, you've heard Trump kind of come after Bezos a little bit. He's backed off recently, thank God, because I think what Amazon is doing is an incredible service to help humanity. And anybody that delivers packages for Amazon right now, given COVID, God bless them. God bless them. But I do think that Amazon is getting too powerful. A lot of people only shop online from Amazon in many parts of the world. And a reason why they might not shop online from Amazon is because they can't find the product. So they might use, eBay or Walmart, whatever. Walmart should have bought Amazon when they could. Now, when people think of Amazon, they think of this company that sells stuff online, products to our house. It's so much more than that. And the reason why the valuation on Amazon has been very high for the past decade, actually past 15 years now, one of the reasons is because Amazon has a separate product called Amazon Web Services. And so in 2005, Jeff Bezos at Amazon realized that every holiday season, Amazon, their servers would crash because they couldn't take all this excess traffic from consumers. And so what they did was they created 9 big buildings across America, and they made thousands of servers in those 9 big buildings, and they turn it on every year around Christmas so they can take on that extra traffic, and they scaled it massively. And then every January, Amazon would say, "Hey, we don't need all this excess capacity. What do we do now? What a waste!" And they started renting it. And so Netflix, the reason why it's such a cheap service and they're very profitable is because Netflix runs almost all of its business off of Amazon Web Services. Think of that as the operating system for the cloud now. Same thing with Uber and Lyft. They run entirely off of Amazon Web Services. And what Jeff Bezos has done with AWS, or Amazon Web Services, is he's cut the pricing point about 100 times because Amazon always believes in EDLP, or everyday low prices. Now, if you compare and contrast Amazon Web Services with Microsoft, which was the dominant operating system of the 1990s, up until recently, Microsoft had only cut the pricing point 3 times on Windows, going back to the 1990s, or 1980s, actually, when Windows first came out. Windows went up. And so to have a company cutting prices materially like this, like Amazon, it's great for consumers It's great for deflation. It's incredibly deflationary. However, there's less competition out there. Like try competing with AWS. Microsoft tries with their Azure product, and Google tries with Google Compute, and other platforms around the world try with different telco companies behind it. But it's really, really hard. And so I think what's going to happen is Amazon will be broken up into two different divisions. One is AWS, and the other is everything else, meaning Kindle, buying stuff online, etc. Competition is always very, very good for the consumer. Okay, and Pratik is saying, I'm a teacher. Can you tell me how I can teach online and earn a decent amount of money? Yeah. So what I recommend doing is go back to the beginning of this webcast because I talked about courses of mine that are free that will teach you how to teach. Or just do a search for my name in Udemy. And then when you do that, go to my profile page on Udemy, and I have a number of courses that are free on how to teach online based on mistakes I've made so you can work smarter and not harder. Thank you. All right. What I've been doing lately, because I've been so crazy busy with this MBA degree stuff, is I buy my food from Daily Harvest. They ship it once a week, and then I just have a Ninja bullet and I blend stuff. It's greatest hits of antioxidants and stuff. All right. All right. Next up is Zach. Hey, Zach, it's been a while, dude. Hope you're well. You wrote, hope you're doing well. I'm taking your cryptocurrency course. I was wondering how could the government benefit if they sell their bonds in foreign markets? Yeah. So the way that bonds work is governments sell them, say to you or to banks or big institutions. They give you that piece of paper, that bond. In return, they get cash. Okay. And the reason they do that is because that bond, the reason you bought it is because the interest rate was good enough based on your risk reward profile. And so that the lowest risk bonds are AAA rated, and there's a rating agency called Moody's and another one called S&P, which is Standard & Poor's, and they rate bonds. And so they do AAA is the best, then AA, then A, then below that is junk or high yield status. Just buy AAA if you're going to buy bonds at all. And so a lot of foreign governments will buy American bonds as well. And so the Chinese government, for example, has a lot of cash. And what they do with that is they can just let it sit in cash and make no interest, or they can buy lower risk instruments. And the lowest risk instrument, as of now, it is what it is United States Treasuries, United States bonds. And I usually own some TIPS, TIPS, which stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. So that if inflation goes up, and it's certainly not going up now, but if it goes up, then the yield in that bond will go up even more so. And so the Chinese government owns a ton of U.S. bonds because it's a very low risk investment. And a lot of foreign governments do as well, instead of just sitting on their own cash. It's great to get a positive return. And so they just foreign governments look at the risk reward and they think, are U.S. bonds more likely to go bust or my own bonds likely to go bust? And they decide from there. Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah, that's right. Willa D is saying drink some water. It was like a year and a half ago. That's right. I remember that, man. A year and a half ago on the call, I talked about this app I have called Drink Water. Yeah. Oh, my God. My dad said he's enjoying my vlog. He said the population in Egypt is now 100 million. I said 50. And he said, my dad said, not sure if you wished Muslims happy Ramadan. It started a couple days ago. And then he wrote XOXO. Okay, great. Well, I want to say happy Ramadan to anybody that's Muslim out there, and God bless you. Yeah. But speaking of drinking water, I have an app that tells me to drink every now and then, and I don't drink enough water. Yeah. And if you guys do get, and I love you, Dad, if you're still watching. If you guys ever do get, you're going to an interview, you're about to give a presentation, and your voice isn't working that well, There's a product I want to show you. I feel like this is right out of the Truman Show. Great movie from 1998. So it's called, and I'm not sponsored by anybody, but it's called Throat 37. And opera singers take this if their voice is raspy or if they start losing their voice. And I talk a hell of a lot in life. No, when I teach, obviously. So I use this every now and then. Yeah, and it works. And it works. Oh, hold on a second. Because I'm a man-child, and I'm 7.5 actually, I have to show you this. All right. What movie is that from? This is my fake ID, folks. I have fake ID because I get carded all the time. Yeah. It's one of my mini props. Yeah. I have the most fun job in the world, man. I love what I do. My students are awesome. All right. Next question is, should I use Teachable or my own website? Definitely use Teachable. Definitely use Teachable. Teachable is it's a generic engine that you can host your courses on there, but it looks like your own website. So when I host my courses on Teachable, it looks like they're on my website, but they're actually not. I'll show you. So if we go over here to, whoops, wrong camera. If we go over here, I'll show you. So if you go to Haroun Education, and you go to my courses or just this one here, it looks like it's my website. It says learn.harounventures.com. It's actually Teachables, but you'd never know it just from looking at this. But why reinvent the wheel? You know, it's not using Teachables is kind of like saying, I want to create a search engine like Google for my website. And a lot of stuff actually on my website, I get from other companies, little plugins here and there to make it easier, like customer testimonials, buttons, and other fun stuff. So you can work smarter, not harder. And when you start your own company, whether it's teaching or whatever it is, you always have to have that sanity check, kind of like the Senate, a sober second look. And that sanity check has got to be this. Every now and then, once a month, ask yourself this. What business am I in? And just remember, everything else you do that's not your core business is a waste of time. So for me, the way I view it is everything I do that's not teaching my students, my customers, is a waste of my time. And so I try to outsource everything else. Yeah. All right. And Daniel's saying, what would you recommend for someone who wants to start writing articles, writing on LinkedIn, or starting your own blog website? Yeah. So go to my YouTube channel, and there's a 14-minute video I published a couple of years ago. When I looked like I was 12. And that video is called, how to write. And basically it's all the journalist tips that I got from my editor when I worked at Inc. magazine, when I had my Calm Inc. magazine a while ago. So just do a search, how to write, or how to write like a journalist on my YouTube channel. You'll find it there. And Sumya is saying, hi, Chris. Hey, what an opportunity to personally thank you for providing such great courses. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And you wrote, I've learned so much from you. How do you make such great trailers for your courses? Thanks. I appreciate that. God bless you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So similar to what I was just mentioning, actually, this is a good way to build on it. My forte is not making trailers. And so I outsourced that as well. And so what I did actually was, there's a guy named Adad, and Adad Warda, and he's like Steven Spielberg in the advertising market. He's great. And I got him to make my first big trailer, which was, it was called the Complete Presentation and Public Speaking Course. And I'm smiling because we got a permit to film it right by the Golden Gate Bridge. And if you watch that trailer, you could see I'm smiling and I'm walking sideways with my arms like this a bit, because typical left coast California stuff, it was naked day at the beach that day. I didn't know they had that stuff. And so Dad, it was so hard for me not to laugh, but he was directing it. And there's like 5 people that worked in that film crew there and they work on all of Morgan Freeman's movies. They're great. But he always had to say, go this way. Yeah, because I had to block out the people. And if you watch it and you blow it up as big as you can see it a little bit maybe in the back. I don't know actually. Yeah, maybe you can. So he's great. And so what I've done is I've gone to, I then went to Prague in the Czech Republic a couple of times to film 7 or 8 more trailers with him. including the Complete Financial Analyst course. And I rented a casino one morning there too. It was actually cheap, because it's the morning. And I filmed the trailer for my Complete Personal Finance course there. And I rented a data center in the Czech Republic as well to film my Complete Cryptocurrency course. And dude, it was funny. Like when I signed, it was crazy though. When I had to sign these documents right before we filmed, from the company in the Czech Republic that owns the data center. And it was out there, dude. In the documents, and they warned me in person too, they said, if a fire breaks out, special chemical called FMT30 or something, whatever it's called, will come out of the ceiling. That chemical coming out of the ceiling is one purpose, and one purpose only, to stop the fire, to save the computers. But you as a human will die in 30 seconds if you don't get out of the building at that point. Right. So it was out there, but it was funny. And we used drones and everything. We rented the Eiffel Tower, the mini Eiffel Tower in Prague for it. And it was interesting because drones, there's one shot from my Complete Job course where I was walking across one of the beautiful bridges in Prague. And at one point I said, even the sky's not the limits if you take my course. And I was saying like this, and that I was in the middle of a bridge, sur le pont d'Avignon, and the drone was supposed to fly up in the sky, and it stopped working. Like it didn't fall into the water, into the river, but it just stopped working because we realized that drones have software embedded so that they can't go close to any government building. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. So that kind of ruined that shot, but we had fun doing it. It was fun. And then more recently, actually with the trailer that you guys saw that I started today's webcast with. So I couldn't hire a dad and his amazing film crew, and I couldn't fly to Prague for obvious reasons, because of Corona, if you're watching the replay. And so what I had to do is I actually had to use my green screen here. And that's how we did it. And then so if you look here, you see above the clock there, and this is just how much time's left in the webcast. And I do this also for my students. I get one-on-ones. I get 20-minute one-on-ones every week with me, my MBA degree students only. But if you look up there's green screen. And so I dropped it down. I turned my camera sideways, and I recorded the promotional trailer, which I'll show it to you. It's right here, actually. Let me just do window in pip and pip sort of here. Yeah. So this here is the trailer that started today's webcast. Right. And so...
Hi, I'm Chris Haroun.
I think you can hear that.
And this MBA degree program is not what you think it is.
That, yeah.
It's better.
So let me just clear this and get it off there. But the way we did that was we did it so that we brought down my green screen. We turned the camera sideways so that we can get the entire TikTok-like portrait mode and more resolution in the camera. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. And then Dean Patton is saying, greetings, Chris from Wales. Great to have you. Great to have you. Thank you. Welcome. I hope you join us again. And then we've got Haroun is saying, hello, Chris. What computer science knowledge should a finance student know to be competitive in the industry? Yeah. So if you're going to invest in tech stocks, I think you have to understand tech. Like you have to have worked in hardware, building computers or a programmer, et cetera. But in general, I don't think you have to really know much. I mean, the only tech you should really kind of understand is Excel for advanced financial modeling. That's what I would say. Yeah. Next question is Gopaz saying, hey, Chris, thanks for replying to my earlier question. You're most welcome. I'm a business/systems analyst. I want to increase my domain knowledge on finance and analytics. How do I go about doing it? Yeah. So I would take my Complete Financial Analyst training course. That will help you out a lot. And then when it comes to analytics, I would take courses from Kirill, who makes great courses on Udemy when it comes to data analytics. He's great. Yeah. All right. And Shivam is saying, sir, I want to explore about finance fields. Which course should I go for? I would take my Complete Financial Analyst course because you rotate through my pretend company called Morgan Haroun Sachs. Like you're an investment banker, a trader, an analyst, etc. And I teach you all this stuff based on my real life experience, and it's fun too. And I make an idiot of myself over and over and over again. All right. And the art of parenting children is saying, I was impressed by your MBA course, Chris. Wish to do my career in teaching, but not seeing earning opportunities in bulk. Please guide me on the subject matter. Yeah. So go to just do a search on my name in Udemy, and then go to Udemy, and I have a bunch of courses on how to. All right, so I got to wrap this up, guys. Sorry, I have a bunch of courses on how to teach online, and based on mistakes I've made, and they're free. They're free, so please check those out. Okay, great. So, unfortunately, I have to wrap up the call now. I know there's a bunch more questions. If you're one of my MBA degree students, you can join me in 15 minutes on our for MBA students only office hours call. And I'm looking forward to talking to you all as part of a group. And then a bunch of you have one-on-ones as well. Like Andrew Dupree, you mentioned you do. I'm looking forward to talking to you today one-on-one. And for those of you that, I always have multiple alarms. For those of you that I didn't get access to answer your questions here, if you're my MBA degree students, paste them again in the MBA call. And for anybody else, please just save your questions and ask me again next week. We do this call every single Thursday for 3 hours, from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. Pacific time, my time here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And usually by Saturday, what we do is I have somebody on my team, one of my employees, type up the whole call in terms of what questions were asked when. So you can go to the description field of this video you're watching now, and you can click to go directly to the answer to any question that's of interest to you. And so I want to thank you all for your time. This has been a fun webcast. If you subscribe to my vlog on YouTube, I'll see you mañana, which means tomorrow in Spanish. If not, God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. And I'll see you next Thursday and every Thursday at 8 a.m. Thank you.